in case sometimes if you might. Okay.
Okay,
Ready.
sounds great. Awesome. I'm just setting up the YouTube live. Okay. Okay, welcome everyone. Can you all hear me? All good? Okay, awesome. Okay, so welcome to State of the Horn and welcome to our event, One People, Three States, Elevating Afar Voices. We are very excited for the event and to have everyone here and our 4 distinguished guests. We will speak a little bit more with regards to who they are, what they do, and what they will be sharing with us today. First, we wanted to share our mission here at State of the Horn for those of you who this is maybe your first event. So State of the Horn was established after the assassination of Oromo singer Hachalu Hundesa. In response to the socio-political divisiveness within the diaspora, we created State of the Horn as a launchpad for honest conversations while promoting solutions at its core. Through community town halls, open forums, and research projects, we seek to educate one another, promote peace and reconciliation, and move towards collective healing. This is a grassroots initiative driven by a deep love for our ancestral homeland and its people. We hail from different ethnic groups and our places of birth span the globe. We are a non-partisan platform. Our group does not represent a political party, nor are we sponsored or funded by any entity or organization. We serve as a neutral platform for dialogue surrounding our complex history, politics, and colorful experiences. So for today's event, One People, Three Nations, the Afar region is located in Eritrea, Djibouti, and Ethiopia. Although Afar people encompass 3 countries, they have long been marginalized in political representation and access to resources. Today, our speakers will shed light to both challenges and triumphs in the Afar region with specific attention to the political context, history, culture, and environment. For the agenda, so we've done our brief introduction and we'll be introducing the presenters. We will include their full bios in the chat box and in the YouTube description box. We will have presentations from all 4 of our speakers, and then we will have a Q&A period beginning approximately around 2:30 p.m. And then we will also open up the chat at that time, so our attendees can pose any questions they may have that have not been already answered by the guest speakers, and that may be pertaining to the presentations that they provide us today. Okay, and I think that's it. Okay, I think I'll hand it over to Kia.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm part of the State of the Horn team. And the first part, as Hannah just mentioned, is going to be our presenters. So our first presenter is Mr. Ahmed Yusuf Mohammed, who is a human rights advocate, serves as president of the Eritrean Afar National Congress, an exiled Eritrean Afar political organization that is dedicated to self-determination in the Afar coastal homeland of Doncalia and Eritrea. And for more details on Mr. Ahmed Yusuf Mohammed, they will be in the chat. I will turn it to you, Mr. Mohammed.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. It looks like you got my slide there. I'm not sure if you have the updated one, but that's pretty much looks good to me. Well, I want to thank everyone for, can you hear me well?
Yes.
I want to thank you all for inviting us. This is really, really appreciated, as you were introducing earlier, that our voices are normally not in the limelight. You have given us here this opportunity. We want to really thank you all on behalf of Afar Nation everywhere. As Afar diaspora, we have been thinking of engaging and getting our side of stories across to the greater regional diaspora and the wider population of the Horn region. Your platform provides a great opportunity, and we are very thankful to all of you for organizing it. So just I'm gonna run through the brief history of Afar history, coming back to the current situation of our people in Dankalia. So the Afar history is one of those African histories that most people are not aware of internationally, but even so, not known to the people in the region. This is a history that unfortunately has been told by many corners of Africa, a nation's survival against colonialism, a story of one of those nations who have came face to face. The Afar are one of those nations who came face to face with the colonialist aggression. The indigenous Afar nation, who at this point, before the colonization came to our land, have enjoyed greatness, ruled over their land and territories without any interference. Unfortunately, today, long after the European colonization has gone, somehow our people find ourselves at the crossroads of a new internal colonization, not by foreigners, but by one of our own. Like many Afar nations, like many African nations, the curse has always been the geostrategic and importance of Afar territories, the coastlines, and most sought after natural resources have been found in the Afar region. No doubt the European colonization was the turning point that made the Afar what we are today. No matter how difficult the situation has been in the past or even today, with the threat of new form of colonization, existential threat to our identity and its territories, one thing the aggressors failed to take away is the sense of our Afarness, our ethnic identity as a nation, our aspirations, and our conscience. Even though our current geopolitical and geographic circumstances are much worse than the old colonial times as indigenous nations, our conscience is clear. We are one nation. We are indivisible, with one language, with one culture, and one history. Having said that, we are not here to promote or redraw the colonial borders that have divided the Afar nation into the current states of Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Eritrea, or to call for a united independent Afar nations in the Horn of Africa. Our intention is here simply to correct the false narrative attributed to Afar nation, straighten the distorted history, and perhaps record unrecorded history. By doing so, our goals are to ultimately find justice for our people who find themselves faced with the clear and present danger, historic injustices, and systemic marginalization that continues to keep our people in the dark and disenfranchised. My name is Ahmed Yusuf Mohammed, and I'm honored to participate in this discussion in as my capacity as president of Eritrean Afar National Congress. My organization is mandated by the Afar people to lead the fight against the Eritrean government, which is responsible for ethnic persecution of our people, displacing the Afar population from Dankalia in Eritrea. Our goals is to establish the internal self-determination of and a political autonomy for Afar nation in our ancestral homeland of Dankalia. In order to understand the Afar plight today, we need to look into the land and territories which was at the center of attraction for colonial powers in 1800s, and also understand a form of new colonization has a new breed of African tyrants claiming to build states, but in fact terrorizing the indigenous nations. I'm sorry, I went perhaps you went too quick, and I want you to go back to slide 2 and 3. Perfect. So the ancient history of I run through this brief history. The prehistory. Sorry, this is slide number 2. Yes, in this part of the world, so the Afar traditional territory has been documented. The existence of the Afar history has been documented for over 5 millennia. There has been documents showing the trade relations between the Afar and the ancient Egypt during the biblical times, exporting frankincense and spices and other goods to old Egypt. During the 15th century, known as the Age of Discovery, the European expedition started to refer to the Afar region as Afar Triangle, a territory spanning over the current sovereign states of Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Eritrea. Most recently, the Afar Triangle has been the site of for a search of human origin, leading to 1974 discovery of the early fossil remains dating back to 3.2 million years. Many paleontologists today refer to the Afar homeland as the cradle of humanity. I am sure my colleague Dawood would probably, from Savannah University, would probably have something to say on that. So going to slide number 4 in the Islamic history period. Here again, as Islam was being introduced in Arabia and spreading in Arabia during the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the coastal Afar region in today's Eritrea, including the Dahlak Islands, said to have received the companions of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who were fleeing persecution in Mecca. The companions that included the Ja'far ibn Abu Talib, the cousin of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some historians even credit the Afar region as being the first ever introduction of Islam into continental Africa, when the persecuted Muslims went to the king of Najashi, also known as King Aramah, in Tigray region of Ethiopia, seeking his protection in a land known as Al-Habasha at that time. So now to colonial history, slide number 5. Here you will see the Italian colonialists in the background and the Afar warriors with their traditional attire in the front. The colonial historic time, the Afar Triangle is one of the most significant and defining moment in the ancient Afar history, because it not only the historic conflicts and oppression at the time, but it's directly connecting to our suffering as a nation today. As I mentioned earlier, prior to European colonization, the Afar have enjoyed a relative success and self-rule. They have dealt with the Egyptians, the Ottoman Empire, which had amicable relationship compared to the European. In this region of the Afar Triangle, the Afar people had developed independent sultanates. They had complete control and self-rule and governance structure to oversee the affairs of their territory, over its lands, resources, made peace treaties using the Afar customary laws with those neighboring nations from Abyssinia when internal conflicts arise. In Dankalia, the Afar coastline first saw the Italian invasion as they took hold in 1869, when the Italians first came. Of course, like many colonialists, the Italians came with the deceiving tactics strategy to divide and conquer to deal with the Afar. They have not used violence as much at the beginning, but they reached out to one sultan in favor of the other sultan. In most part of Afar territories, the colonization took shape of treaties. Here you will see the treaties and agreements that was signed between the Afar and the Europeans. You will see almost 19 conventions and agreements that were signed between 1800 to 1935 with then superpowers like Italy, French, and so on. So if you go to, I don't know if you received my little video about the Sultan of one of the strongest Sultan, Sultania Muhammad of Ausa at that time, but perhaps we can show that later on in our presentation. So to go back to the resistance, even though the Italians and the Europeans came with the tricks of deceive and conquer, divide and conquer, the Afar Sultans of Biru, one of the Afar Sultan of Biru that, yes, it's on slide number 7. So this Afar Sultan was not only they failed to trick him into signing a colonial agreement, but he started anti-colonial sentiment and resistance, and he single-handedly, the Sultan of Garifo, Sultan Yasin Haisama, led historic anti-colonialist struggle as a young man of age 39, who bravely fought Italian Mussolini colonial forces for over 30 years, preventing the colonization of major part of Afar hinterlands from being colonized. After fierce battle against Mussolini forces, the young Sultan Yasin Haisama was killed in a battle in a village of Biru in 1931. The defeat of Afar Sultan cleared the way for Italians to control the entire area, the entire Eritrea without any problems. And the construction of the main artery road to link the highlands of Ethiopia to the sea outlet in Assab was achieved. The Assab, Desse, and Addis Ababa asphalt road was built in 1935 after the Afar resistance was defeated. Another historic action was led by another young man, Ali Muhammad Osman, nicknamed Nokra Yagili, meaning the one who broke the island in Afar language, meaning the island of Dahlak, when he led a prison revolt against the Italians who have imprisoned those who rejected the fascist colonialist aggression. He was related to great Yasin Haisama. He broke the prison, like I said, and he freed many prisoners and Afar and non-Afars who fought against the colonialism. He was later apprehended and was killed by Italians as well. So even though the Afar nation was not directly defending the Ethiopian highlands at the time from European colonization, they have significantly contributed to Ethiopia being free of colonization at the time. Today, you will not find any mention of Afar history either in Ethiopian books or in Eritrean books. So jumping back to slide number 8, we are now heading to the main part of my presentation, the plight of our people in Eritrea. As you can see from this slide, the question is Eritrea in fact colonizing Afar, or it is building a nation state? Today, you will see with me and follow in my presentation that in fact Eritrea is not in a nation building process, but in fact colonizing the Afar nation in Eritrea. Today in Eritrea, as the old scars of European colonization has faded away, there is a new form of colonization is taking place in the Afar territory in Eritrea. Since the current Eritrean regime came into power in 1991, the new rebel movement never transferred itself of being legitimate government. The so-called government of Eritrea ruled by military decree under one-man dictatorship, Isaias Afwerki. In 1991, the EPLF military junta introduced series of illegal laws, military decrees, introduced a form of indoctrination in the country, not only to rule by force, but to destroy all of the previously indigenous nations and its identities. Using a series of proclamations, military court and de facto constitution, the Eritrean regime declared the new country would in fact have one single identity, modeling itself in the motto of Hade Hizbi Hade Libi, meaning one people with one heart, a motto that was driven out of Stalinist and Leninist ideology, creating a totalitarian state. In introducing a culture of cultural revolution, modeling itself in a majority culture of Tigrinya, a group that was dominating the EPLF, and as the EPLF rebels took power and leadership in after the independence. This means it would not recognize previous indigenous cultural identities such as the Afar nation, its customary laws, its land and territorial rights. Soon after the independence, the land proclamation was introduced, giving the Eritrean state the new and the sole ownership of Eritrea's lands, seacoast, and natural resources. The government declared the old customary laws by the Afar nation to own their land and land rights was deemed archaic and should be abolished, i.e. the Afar would not have any land rights in Eritrea. Now, slide number 11, please. So in addition to these systematic racist policies against the Afar nation in Eritrea, the government has deployed a violent strategy to remove the Afar from strategic and resource-rich territory of Dankalia. To remove the Afar, the government of Eritrea is using mass murder, intimidation, terror, and destroying the basis of Afar economy. So the Afar are fleeing Dankalia by tens of thousands. The United Nations Human Rights Commission for Refugees has documented Afar refugees by tens of thousands. Close to 200,000 Afar have fled Eritrea since 1991. The Afar have filed numerous complaints with the UN Special Rapporteurs on the situation of human rights in Eritrea, United Nations Human Rights Council, and UN's Commission for Commission of Inquiries in Eritrea. After investigating the Afar allegation, the UN Commission of Human Rights Inquiries and the Special Rapporteurs have all confirmed that Eritrean officials have in fact committed crimes of persecution and crimes against humanity against the Afar population since 1991. The UN reports stated the actions by Eritrean authorities may be construed as an international act to dispossess the Afar of their ancestral lands, their livelihood, and their culture. The killing of members of Afar ethnic and report of existence of mass graves have also triggered their displacement from their land within the country and across borders to Ethiopia and Djibouti. This has posed great difficulty to their livelihood as they depend on their traditional lands for sustenance as indigenous ethnic groups. This is UN report paragraph 1120 be in a commission of inquiry report. So another document also states that land traditionally belonged to or used by the Afar was seized in a framework of the land reform and afterward by the decision of the government without consultation of the impacted Afar communities. So as you can run through these slides from 11 to 18, you will see series of human rights violations, including the strategic lands right here by corporations called that is naming itself Danakili, out of all these names to put insult on top of the injury that are displacing our people, taking huge massive land that you can see in the screen, over 500 square kilometers of rich land resources with natural resources, defacing the cultural sites of indigenous graves, as you can see. This is all done in collaboration with the Australian mining giant and the Eritrean tyrant. If you can go back to, if you go to slide number 20, there you go. So this here is basically what we envision for Eritrea to turn the page from being a tyrannical system to internationally respected player and that respects human rights of its people. In our views, as I mentioned before, the current Eritrean regime is thinking like a colonialist. Its actions are colonial. The way this state was put together after the independence was not only undemocratic, but it was driven out of a racist ideological belief, suppressing the cultural of indigenous groups and their identity. This regime is a military tyrant, exclusively unitary system centralized on the support and domination of one single culture and identity over all Eritrean nations and nationality. The excessively centralized government and its military junta are responsible for all that is wrong in the country today. The country has been condemned as a failed state, compared to North Korea of Africa. Now, after making peace with Ethiopia briefly, is now being the single most exporter of instability in the region by sending its military to commit genocide in Tigray. In our views, the current status quo is unsustainable. We hear in some corners of the so-called democratic opposition who still thinks reaching out to the military or the army will help get rid of the tyrant. But the army is reaching out to the army will not fix Eritrea's problem. It will be just a band-aid solution. The Eritrean army is part of the problem. It has now been implicated itself in international crimes in the region. In our views, Eritrean state cannot be saved by simply removing the dictator Isaias Afwerki. This is why we are calling for a complete redoing of Eritrea's repressive regime. We need to hit the reset button on Eritrea. The system needs to be broken down and reconstructed in accordance with Eritrea's mosaic, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multi-regional aspirations of the Eritrean people. As Afar views, Afar democratic vision for Eritrea includes a power-sharing constitution, a federation between Eritrea's historic, multinational, multi-ethnic, multi-religious nationalities. Our democratic vision will restore the indigenous rights of the indigenous rights of Eritrean people, including the land rights, resource rights, cultural and language rights. Our vision will restore democratic principle and rule of law, democracy, a sustainable equality, coexistent between all Eritrean nations and nationality, and will end the cycle of violence and restore people's confidence in the rule of law in the country. Thank you very much for listening to us. And I'm really I'm looking forward to any questions or any comments, and I really appreciate your time and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed Yusuf Mohammed. That was a very thorough overview of the colonial history and current political dynamics. Now we're going to turn to Mr. Hussein Ibrahim Humed. So Mr. Humed is a professor of philosophy teaching in the academies of Paris, Créteil, et Versailles. As a lawyer and regulatory affairs officer, he has filed complaints with the International Criminal Court for war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity against the current president of Djibouti, Ismail Omar Guelleh, for the anti-Afar genocide and the massacres of the Gada Bursi and the Isas in Djibouti. I will turn it to Mr. Mohammed. I think he has to unmute. Hassan, do you mind letting him know?
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you so much, Hannah and Hala. My name is Hussein. My English is not perfect. That's why I would like to speak Afar, because in Djibouti we speak French, Afar. Donc, بويسا أسجلته يعني على حسب وقر حبي هاي جيبوتية وعدنا عفر باروي عفر مياي ينكي عفر يعني لو حدل تبنا مليون يعني تاكي بحر مليون توبيا الجيتما لما مليون ألتريا الجيتما قبوتيل بحر بولها في يكن وهو يعني استاتستيكي كده توعيمي لو إنها استاتستيكي يعني ما دولة لي حاجدي معوك أريد دودانم هنا تكبر لحمل يونتا تكبر بحر مليونتا أما آخره هنتلا عفر تبنا مليون يعني تكي مسلميني توجد كيني كتك معي
ما عقدي ثاني يكتبيني مية أنا قحسوا ما تو يورس أتيا ثاني أتيلي مسابتها
تو عدنا هاي عفر مانكل يعني تعيشي ينكي عفر جيبوتيل يعني تعيشي على تريال معاشات له أوتوبيا المعاشات له مهكا يعني كارتي اللي يسبوا لناي دونك توكي لكتا عفر دونك سدحار حل إفكتوان تعيشي أوتوبيا كا عصبد يعني كاكي دحانم لم يعني كيني أوتوبيا لا دا تجتل يعني مصروف حل هاي تما أجزعية يعني كبام عفر اللي تنباروي جيبوتي لي بارو حدلو بولو سجلة بنا عفر له شعبيا وقتين كي عفرا بولوك كنت بكبو يعني تافي أفك باهم مرة يعني الدهان مهارحم عفرك عفر معيه دي يعني تكيه وسا جيبوتي يعني كي يرحم بولو لما ني نوك عيسي باروك عندي قد براليه ويسا بارو عفر كي عيسى أنا ما مجي عفر كي سوماليا أنا تأثير لو إن عفر إنكي شعبي عفر إنكي مراي عفر إتنيك يعني كي مراي عيسى كدبرا عيسى عفر الباهم راهنا عفر كي سومالي ترباهنا دودانا لكن عيسى عندك دبراي عفر الباهو دودانا هناي كولونايزك أما تيمي ما هاي فرنساوي دم تيمي ويسا أكام كادونا قبوتي عفرا أوتوبيا كي ألاتريا عفرك تايسه لونا قبوتي هدلا مقوم أبين لونو بوليتيك حدو يعني تكيك إيكونوميك حدو يعني تككني ما وكن توبكو على ترياكي جيبوتي توبكو على ترياكي أوتوبيا توبكو هنها جبوتي عفركادنا يعني وأبينو لمرلوكو هشكتلي وما نكيل باهن تو يعني بارو حدوي تو عدينا بارو حدو هم إنه عدينا this is cards this is map of Afar in the Republic of Djibouti أما كها عفر يعني لباتنا كيس دي حال في لباتنا في كي لما بولو كيلومتر ليه عيسي يعني تجد برالي بارك عندي جد برالي أجبوتي مقالة عفر تاني سومالي تاني عرب تاني حبشة تاني فرنساوي تاني كل الديان كي تاني دونك اللي حبولي كيلومتر عيسي أرحو مدودا أما هي معدو سهاي عفر يعني بارو لمي تو عدنا بسوه الدجنكي هاي فرسوكو هيستوري أبولها وعدنا فرنساوي نهارك حيو أمتي فرنساوي حيو اللي تمتكلي يعني صحيح عفر دردارتي تلوكوي راحيت السلطان اللوكو يعني تيهن كنهم ما راحيت السلطان اللوكو تيه وعدنا رحم عفر راحيت السلطان أفتكن هي لو إن عفر ما يعني كامولايو يانم عسي سمرا هناي
ممكن أبي حسينه فوق حسيدكم فوق حسين.
ياي
So Hannah, if you go back to slide 2, just to kind of gain perspective, when we talk about Afar triangle or Afar Sidi Hamu in the Afar language, it's that triangle shape that the Afar territory makes. As you can see, on the northern part, you can see the strip of Nankalia, and then on the southern part, you can see the Afar regional state in Ethiopia, as well as Djibouti on the eastern coast. That speaks to the triangle. He spoke about the importance of the economic importance of the Afar region and Afar territories in terms of, on the Dankalia side, the port and access to the Red Sea, and then on the Ethiopia side, the importance of about 90% of the economy that comes into Ethiopia is through that road that runs through the Afar region. So in many ways, the Afar region of Ethiopia is the throat of the Ethiopian economy, with all the economic access, all that economic activity coming through the roads that run through the Afar region in Ethiopia. And then in terms of Djibouti, you have the two ports in Djibouti, and the geostrategic importance of the French, the US, Italian, and so on, military bases in that country. Go to the next slide. And so, I just kind of spoke to, when we talk about where the Afar people live, the three countries, and the, I think I covered that. Sorry, go ahead.
توكلي هاي هيستوري حبسها وعدنا جبوتي أككلا مجو مجاعتيتا تيلي نهارسي مجاعتيتا يعني territoire français de Bok et de dépendance يعني سبتي أما مجي جبوتي اللي يارجيني كوت française de Somalie كوت française de Somalie ألفيكي بحربول كي ساقلت وانكي لحي إلى ألفيكي ساقلبول كي لحتنكي ملحين نكسكتي فرنساوي هاي سومالي إلا نواي تبارو محهيني يعني سومالي بارو يعني سومالي بارو يعني كهيني مي كبوكتينك راحيت السلطانة أبن نعبو لو نحيوك أفتكين هي عفر باروك أفتكين هي دوبكو جبوتي يعني ككيانكي أميني توكل أساس برا أبيني دونك عفر هاشكتها بين راحيت السلطانة نعبوها بين لكن مجي ستوري أبو لها وعدنا إيطاليا سوماليا هاي تسكتي إنجليزي سومالي لاند هاي تسكتي فرنساوي تو كدري هاي كومبلكس حلتم الدحولته وسم كادونا سن سومالي فداستك سجين وطاق هاي عفر بارولو أرحم سومالي ميقع يعني كهي عين مي عفر حاجة كنهم ما مجي يعني تليان كي إنجليزي علايلت الدسوجيني وهمي الدابينمي بوكات الدلاء إيانا ما نانو سومالي ميقع كهني حبارولو إيان سومالي حبت اللي ينبارو هنا عفر بارو هيان مختوبك اللي تن تو كادو ناهي كدخلتي الدابيني هي تو جد السلامة معني سك معيمي
away na yantina.
Yay.
Like afgad bihan. Agse.
Maiko akso.
Apa ba agse.
Yay inna sugnami Djibouti wacdina afar baro. Afar aksa akashib بالسوق baro hinna. أقول لها تمرين كيها ساكونا يعني فرنساوي كولونايز باهي مرة توكلي هاي عفر دوبك لبارو محاهيني يعني فرنساوي باروي سومالي مقع يعني كهبين كود فرنساز effectivement de Somalie سومالي بارو الدين أبارو العفر أكسا كمر اللي سوي بارو هنا فرنساوي كتوه يسر وعدنا فرنساوي يعني الدتمي تاليان إيسي سومالي بارو لكسوغي إنجليزي إيسي سومالي بارو لكسوكتي تاليانا سوماليا ديسي إنجليزي سومالي لاند ديسي فرنساوي كادونا هاي تن حل تبارو ميقع فرداستك سوغيني جابوتي هدام ميني تها يعني سومالي باروين سومالي إلا نواي تبارو يخطبيني هاي نانو سومالي إلا نواي تبارو سومالي بارو يعني كاهن نميين راحيت السلطان اي باروك نيكوت سهي نعبوكي هنجريزي كتاليانيت ابنا عليلي تاغا الدبني بكلها يعني سومالي بارو هنا سومالي اللي تنبارو هنا خلتي ابني ميه إيا نسو.
Okay. So historically, Djibouti has been Afar land inhabited by the Afar people. During the colonial period, the Italians had Italian Somaliland. The English also had, the British also had have occupied parts of Somalia. And so at that time, as you guys know, a lot of the colonial powers were in competition for scramble of Africa. And in the process to say that they too also have part of Somalia, or that they can match with the English and the British, they too renamed Djibouti to line up with the French Somaliland. And the reason why that happened was the Sultan of Rahaita refused to give them land, refused to give them Obok or Hayu. And so in ways of punishing him, they did that. Okay.
يي توكلي مشاكل يميتي لما كده مشاكل يميتي توا تبارو سومالي اللي تنبارو فرنساوي لي الدحي وعدنا سوماليا independence بيتي ألفي كي سقربول كي لحتمه سياد بريمي هاي توا سوماليا independence اللي بيتكلي تجبوتي كوت فرنسيز دو سومالي ميجا عليه يائي يباروي ويسا سوماليا تسقليه إيه تو مشاكل يبري نهارك أكاقم بكوها حبشا كادونا حبشا كي سوماليا عدوه اللي سبتكليه حبشا كادو يتم تبارلوين يعني حبشاك فرنساوي قرعينوت بيتباروين عفر اللي تعيشه عفر حبشا كادونا معاشت له نيميهين ما يتبلي لما دولت ونا لا جيبوتي بالتاسيتا متى أمته فرنساوي تو كدري هاي يعني مقع أبدليات الدمت الدح.
So here he speaks to the Somali and Ethiopian claims to Djibouti. Somalia's claim came about after independence in 1960, and the president at that time said, as it has the name French Somaliland, that it should be part of Somalia, and that's where that claim came from. And Ethiopia also made claims to Djibouti because of the historical significance of the two, and the fact that the Ethiopians consider Afar people to be Habasha, or part of their history.
توكلي فرنساوي مقع أبدلية بتدح نهار كود فرنسيز سومالي بارو إلا رح كسوجني كلي فرنساوي قصبتك كتايسا تح عفركي عيسي بارو يعني ما يقولنا العفركي عيسى ينكي أوتوبيا الدم حلتا سوماليا الدم حلتاي توهمي ألفي كيس أغلبول كي لحتان كي ملحيني إلى بنديرة بينها جديدح.
So to dispel the claims from Somalia and Ethiopia, the French renamed the territory French territory of Afars and Isas to say that Eritrea has no claims to it and that Somalia has no claims to it at that time. And that's where we were from 1967 to 1977.
توكلي دح فرنساوي ودير لما هاي تو هذا كدخلتي أبتدح نهارسي خلتي سومالي إلا نواي تبارو سومالي بارو يني عفرك يمسحيني دح توا يا دح عفرا إنكي هي إتنيك يعني هي إنكي هي شعبي يعني هي كيد عيسى ويسع دبرة كذا براه يعني تنيه يا إيتين أرح باهيني هده تون حل تنقدم مشاكل بهته هده أساكو
So by renaming
سومالي ده تبلهنا
by renaming Djibouti or the territory, French territory of Afars and Isas, at that time or before that, historically, this has been Afar land, and by claiming that the Isas or the Somalis are part of this land, they basically rewrote the history and by basically legitimizing in some sense the Somali or the Isa claim to the country. And by doing this, they brought the Afar people, who are an ethnic group, and then you have the Isas, who are a tribe, at the same level when they shouldn't be at the same level in terms of importance.
إلى أساكونا يدح كده مشاكلي عفرت فرحي يدح يعني عفر مقع أبارو الدقع سوعدي لكن يدح سوماليكا كي مسيح يدح قد بورسيكا كيامرا يمسيحيني يدح إساقا كيامرا يمسيحيني يدح داروتكا كيامرا يمسيحيني أساكو يا مشاكلي يدح أعيسي سومالي سن اللي مراهين ناي روحي كي عين يدح قد بورسي إساقا دارود عيبي أبانا عفرت كادونا عيبي الدابان الدح لونا أساكونا باور usun lonu deh baru alu ana maha farasawi ken hatta abinu usun lonu farinan mabastana deh bara lu amari minority yamari.
Yeah. So as you guys can see, when the Afars saw their name in the country's name, this is something that brought them joy and showed the importance of who they are at the national level. But one of the effects of this is that the Isas, their claim to power and rise to power erased other Somali clans that were there, and today's made it a one-party rule.
تويا أبارو عفر كعيسى يوعدنا أبها عفرنم سجيه علي عارف مقالي.
So when they named it the French territories of Afar Isas, the first president or the person that they put in charge of the new territory was a Afar man, and his name was Ali Arif Burhan.
لكن يدح عفر مجي حريات فرداستك سكته أفرنساوي سنك تياعيمي لفت اللي سكته كليد فرنساوي وهي من كيه بدل هايته بنديرات سينه نحيينه عيسى قبت هينه الدح حاجد.
So Afar here did want self-determination and rights to their land, and they wanted independence. And giving them independence, the French gave them independence, but they put the Somali in charge of running the country.
تويا الدحي جبوتي دولة ألف كي ملحنا بولكي ملحنا طبعا كي ملحيني إلى أساكونا لما في كي لواتنا كيتي مروتون كي سيدي حسنة تايدح عفر فلسطين تكيهدح.
Next slide, please. So here, since independence in 1977 to today, it has been 43 years of nightmare for the Afar people. Today, we consider the Afar people in the Horn of Africa to be the Palestinians of Africa in the struggle that they're going through today.
تويا الدح و جبوتي هبهنم حسن قولي دبتدان كي أسا أبه ينمودح إسماعيل عمر قلي جبوتي اليوم كي مرهنا بارو مرهنا إسماعيل عمر قلي بايوغرافي أبو لهيني كيدح دردبك يميتن موهدح حبشا حسن قولي سوماليا يميتن موهدح تو عدنا فرنساوي وريفنا يدح و أفك يميتن مرا ليه تمهي كي أفريكال أباسي تامدح لونا بارو مريتيتي هكوام اللي تاريخ كليد أفريقيا كل دولة تكا أفمر بحاسته تو مري بارو مرا وما يبولت أسيسانا هده.
So the French colonial system today still exists, but exists in a different form. And today in Djibouti, since independence in 1977, there has been two presidents. So the first one is Hassan Bouled, who is he was not born in Djibouti. He was born in Somalia. as well as I believe the current president is his nephew. He was born in Ethiopia, Eritrea, and he's also of Somali ethnic background. And so this is something that's not only unique to Djibouti, but this is a game that the French plays around the whole continent of Africa, where they maintain power by controlling who is in charge of the country. And a lot of times it's those people who do not benefit the occupants of the country that they're colonizing or have colonized.
تو عدينا يدح أساكون جبوتي هدلا بنديرت بين ساكو توكي تكي ideology كينيكي لما مدح ما يتبلي first يعني عيسيو بارو لم عيساي لكن أبين لمي ومونو هبه كدو مماسن يعني ككيامرا تو نهارسي ideology لما هاي توتيا عيسى كو أمريكي هي يعني تامك أفتكن هانا روحي كين يعيني كين حيلسانا كين بارو بكوسانا وما يبلوت يعني كين سيسانا دح توهمي عفر يعني عفر باروك يعيني بارو كينك بكوسانا كي تاما كين الدحينانا كي أجابو كينك حيلسانا كي أبوز يعني كين تدابانا هدح كل ساكو.
So today there's two ideologies in Djibouti. The importance of the Isa tribe as the supreme in the country, controlling all facets of government and economy. And the second part of that is the Mamasan. Mamasan is the clan of the president and his family. They run the country like it's their own business, like it's their own bank account. Whereas the other ethnic group, the Afar ethnic group today in Djibouti is treated as second-class citizens in terms of social life, economic life, political life, as well as schools. Today, since 1977, Afar people have lived as second-class citizens, having their women raped, having their kids not being employed, as well as land grabbing in Arta, as well as like Asal. All these things are done to marginalize and decrease the influence of Afar people across the country. And today, some might argue that Afar people do have leaders in the country, but they don't. These are few people that have been paid off. You look at the military right now, whereas in 1977, 60 to 61% of the military was Afar. Today, it's down to 20%. You look at government ministers. There are some Afar ministers, but in relation to the power that they have, as well, the power that they have and the power that Isa ministers have are not in parallel. Afar ministers are figureheads who have no real power, whereas Isa ministers actually have power to influence policy and money in the country. And so today they've used their own people against us by paying them off, and that's how Afar people are living in the country today.
توكلي إتما هاي عفرتنا أمنا حلتا وما يبلوت أسيسة تهيني colonize marginalisé تبيني abused يعني تدخل سوا عدينا يده عفر وقلته يده لو إننا باروك 90% لمريده يعني minority وما نكني لابتم حينيني جبهت هيني ده وجبهتها فريد مي عليه وجبهت يعني كهينمي لما مده يعني كهينمي عدالة أبانا ما عفر كيسي فنتاي كي ديمقراسي اللي باهرنا ديكتاتوريت أبان عيبيه ده.
Sure. As I was just speaking to the tribal hegemony of the Djibouti government, we'll move on to what came after this. What was the Afar response to this? Afar started an armed resistance called FREED, which stands for Front for Restoration of Unity and Democracy. The two demands that this pro-Afar group had was to establish democracy first and foremost, and to rebalance the ethnic-based power in the country, whether that's in government and the military.
تو عدينا يدح أما عيبي يكي وعدينا يدح 1991 عفر باروكو يعني بولو سقلتها بنحلتما يعني تبرسو كتدح يسحكي جيتم يعني فرق سكتدح عفرها باور بيتامكا عندي كبر الدسكته يدح ودير فرنساوي كان الدائرة يسدح أنا وغريكي أنا ويتم بها هايته أقولت يعني كان هايته وهو كدري أمره دولة مرة عيسى سلاح الداحو وهايته ما ونا لا يدحي رواندا لا بول كاغامي أسا أباه كاميرا إفبير فرنساوي يعني حاجد حينيني سني بارو بوكوسيني هسا كنا محكا يدح رواندا حيلتم لكن جابوتي الفرنساوي عفرت أبتي أيلسيو ودير بارو كيدك بينه أسا كنا ودير عفرا وما يبلوت يعني تنيه دي حساكو.
So the armed resistance showed the importance or what happens right now at that time that the Afar owned land, the Afar people own 90% of the land in Djibouti, yet they're a minority in government in all functions of government. And so this was due to the French government picking favorites.
فرنساوي أنا ويتبهته رواندا لا يدح هو توكي توتسي يعني تو معدينا يدح توتسي بارو عديك دب هايتي فرنساوي يعني فرنساوي حاجدي حينته يدح ما يتبلي سفرت يعني حليانا ما يعني فرنساوي حنيني سني بارو بينه يدح جابوتي الفريد وهو قلته يدح فرنساوي تامين سكته هو فرنساوي فريد مكوت بيته أساكونا يدح بارو كي كينك بيني وماني أكو كساه يدح أفر حاجد ما معنا يدح.
So during the war, the Afar people, the Freed Army controlled 3/4 of the land during the war. And when the French started negotiations, he's given an example to what happened in Rwanda between the Hutsis and Tutsis. And that the Hutsis didn't want the involvement of the French in the affairs of the civil war that was happening in the country. And looking at today, they're a country who are, benefiting from the struggles that they faced, as well as a country today that's economically moving forward. But when you look at Djibouti, when the French decided to speak between the government and the Afar people, it was a fake agreement that did not benefit the Afar community or the Afar people or Freed. And today, in many ways, we are where we started. Even today, the way that the French play in the country's internal politics still favors one ethnic group over the other.
Mr. Hassan, do you mind just letting Mr. Hussein know to make his closing remarks?
Okay. I said I was not. Okay.
Bon, أساسي كأنه إتما يدحي تواي wo عفر وهي مقولتو عدينا يدح سنام يعني عفرك مجمرة عيسي مجمرة عفرك الدعيدة جينوسايد هي وعدينا يدح أنو دنهاج أختبه يدح محكا دعوتاي يعني وكلي دعوة يعني الديوسه هو أركت أمهتي يدح. ICC court.
Nah, so after the I guess the negotiation between the government and the Afar people, as you can see, these are the aftermaths of that in terms of genocide, erasing Afar people and their history. In my own personal family, my sister's husband was killed in front of her in one of the rural villages, and Hussein has been working to file grievances with the Hague, the International Court of Crime. International Criminal Court in The Hague.
Donc أساكونا جيبوتي أما كايدح أما مريكي معاشة اللي بدح أمريكا عسكر اللي تندح فرنساوي عسكر اللي تندح شينا عسكر اللي تندح جابانيزي عسكر اللي تندح إيطاليا عسكر اللي تندح جرمن يعني اللي جيتي مدح كندا يعني عسكر اللي جيتي تندح إسبانيش اللي جيتي مدح أهاي دحاي ديمقراطي لبارو هده ديمقراطي لبارو جبوتي هذا النوكيني هده ديكتاتوريك عن قرب ميانا ده عفارة طبعا عدمكي عن قرب ميانا ده تنحل تماي ده هاي واقسانا مده سني بارو الدفران ما أفريقيا ما بانا هده.
So as you guys can see, all the countries that have military bases in Djibouti, all these countries pride themselves on being modern democracies that care about human rights and human rights violations. Yet they know what's happening in the country. They know what's happening against the Afar people every day, and they yet choose to not see a thing and ignore the issues that are happening right in front of them.
أسا كنا يدح محتياي جيبوتي أسا أولي جيبوتي ديكتاتورك تنباريو يدح ما قمر جيبوتي كي عفر تكاي أكا شعبي يعني تكاي يدح حبانه هده باروي أوروبا فن يماتيني أمريكا فن يماتيني كندا المجونه هده كادونا كودانا هده.
So due to, the circumstance in the country, in the last 10 to 15 years, you've seen a lot of Djiboutians leaving the country for better life, whether that's in Canada, the US, or Europe. It's because of the policies that the current government is installing or implementing.
لكن يده أساكونا بو جيبوتي أبو لها وعدنا إيتا ما هي تبلي ما احتيا إيتا أساكونا جيبوتي دكتاتور وديركون هايتو منده أماتيا تساكونا أنو جيبوتي مريكي كاك فورم يعني فردينتا لما possibility رعتاه هده سلاح ودير يكوعيني جبهات هانم كيده جبوتي شعبي يعني كاتوكتاما هده.
So as you guys know, there's an election in Djibouti next month. The president's trying to vie for a fifth mandate. And this is an election that we already know the outcome to. But if we look at what are the options today that the people have, that Djibouti citizens have, there are two scenarios on the table today. One is that people on the ground rise up and demand their rights and to his rule, or that there needs to be an armed struggle in the country, or possibility of an armed struggle in the country to change the current circumstance in the country.
تو حاجة عم بالله جديد أكد يعني سولسة at the end أكد يعني سولسة هاي تسمع العمر وبيلنا موباي أديكتاتور فوريلنا يعني راعلي أسوأ لك خبر أماتيكا لايده أدو اللي أوروبا كي أمريكا عسكرايده ورفن انتي تالفتاه لونا كل ساكونا أقابو حيلي سكسانا جينوسايد أكو كسا فريناني مأباستاهده كلك عدس كن سلاحات سينما بكاسي تكساهده عجيب كده تريم توهي من ده.
So as you know, today, the president is able to do all that he is by getting rich and getting his family rich, by still committing acts of genocide and erasing of Afar history throughout the country. And yet he's doing all of this in front of the US military, the French military, the Italian military. And so all these things are things that they are closing their eyes to, are ignoring. All these things that are happening in front of them. All these countries have intelligence and militaries in the country, so they know what's happening in every part of the country, yet they choose to stay silent. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hussein. That was a wonderful overview of Afar people in Djibouti and the Djiboutian government's involvement with the community. Now we are going to move to Mr. Dawood Muhammad Ali, who is currently a lecturer and researcher at Samara University in Ethiopia, where he also serves as Executive Director for the International and Public Relations Affairs Directorate of the university. He's also the founder and president of the Afar Development and Scholarship Fund, which is dedicated to the advancement of education and development affairs in the Afar region of Ethiopia. Mr. Dawood, I will hand it to you.
Thank you so much. I would begin by saying thank you to the State of the Horn people. It's really an honor to be invited to speak in this kind of platform, and I'm absolutely honored to speak to you about the situation of the Afar people in Ethiopia. So my colleagues have already introduced and spoken in detail about who the Afar people are, some of the plights and challenges that are surrounding our community. In this part of my presentation, I'll be talking a little bit about the situations in Ethiopia, Ethiopian Afar people. So first, for those of audiences who doesn't know the Afar region, let me say a few things. The Afar people are the Cushitic people that are living in the northeastern part of in the Horn of Africa, mainly the three countries like Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Djibouti. Afar people are very peaceful and peace-loving people, and at the same time, they are highly feared by external enemies, and they have been protecting and defending Ethiopia since the colonial era. They have also played a greater role in in the state formation of the Ethiopian state in general. However, despite the significant and important role the Afar people played in the state formation process in this country, they have been one of those who have benefited the least. Afars, they love their culture, they respect their neighbors, and they are also very tolerant towards people of other faiths or other ethnicity. In fact, today you can see Ethiopia is going through some tough time, mainly because of ethnic-based tensions and some other problems. And during this critical time, Afar is one of those places where people can find a safe haven. This is one of the peaceful places in Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, the Afar people occupy the northeastern part of the country, as you can see on the map, and the geopolitical strategic importance of Afar is so huge. It's mainly because it's a strut or the breadbasket of Ethiopia. Like 75% of the Ethiopian roads connecting it to the international environment, they go through Afar land. So it is the corridor of import and export trade. Afar also, you can see again on the map, it shares borders with two international neighbors, the Djibouti and Eritrea, and it's also one of the internally, nationally connected region. We have connections with like 4 or 5 regions, Tigray, Amhara, Somali, Oromo. These are some of the regions that share borders with Afar. In terms of governance, Afar is divided into 5 zones and 35 districts in Ethiopia. So we have 35 districts and 5 zones, and with the land mass of 72,000 square kilometers, Afar is home to, according to the 2007 statistic, this is the older figure, I would say 1.8 million, which most of the UN agencies and international organizations do not accept. And even Afars also, we also don't believe this is our number. So the last time Ethiopia had its census was in 2007, which is like 13 years back. So right now, Afars are estimated between like 3 million or 2.5 million. That is what the government figure says. But when you look at the statistics and the figures coming from UN documents or other organizations, the figures are quite high. And there seems to be some kind of intentional reduction of the people by the government. So Afars are mainly pastoralists. In Ethiopia, we live as pastoralists or agro-pastoralists. We're part of our community. They practice agriculture, while most of the majority of the Afar people are pastoralists who go, who depend on livestock rearing for survival. There is a large mass of livestock animals. Ethiopia, as you know, is one of the leading nations in terms of livestock population side, and Afar is one of the contributors of this pride to the country. That is the economy. Afar is also blessed with natural resources. It is the only supplier, the sole supplier of salts to the entire country. Salt is abundantly available. Although Afars do not benefit much from it, it is controlled by either people who are from the Highlander Ethiopians coming from the other regions. These are very rich businessmen and women who, make some kind of deal with the federal government authority or regional government's leaders to take control of the salt. And today, if you just Google and see who controls the salt in Afar, you will see some big names like Izana company, and none of these companies are like Afar companies. Afar is not only blessed with salt, there is a massive accumulation of gold, there is also potash. And yet again, the potash is exploited by either Canadian company or other companies who contribute very less to the indigenous community in terms of job creation or to benefit from the potash minerals that they always, export to foreign countries. So there is gold, there is potash, there is salt. We also have, Afar is also rich in terms of geothermal energy. which can be, you know, converted into electricity. And so it's generally it's a land blessed with natural resources. Afar is also one of those places that tourists come from very far and distant areas to visit. Places like Dalol, which has gained an international acclaim as one of the most beautiful places that tourists want to see. People from Canada, America, or Western countries, they come to this land, and they always they always explain this experience in a very unique way. Afar is like a place we have called Dalol, and where you will find one of the hottest active volcanoes in the world called Eritrea, which means in local language, Eritrea means the smoky mountain. This is a part of the Afar where you walk in a very colorful soil and you feel like you are traveling in another planet. Everything you see there is completely different from what you see in normal circumstances in other places. There is the active volcano, there is the Lol, and Afar is also a place where humanity begins. Historians today, they tell us the oldest human being, Lucy, was discovered in Afar in a place called Adar. And you know, similar kind of archaeological finds are there, and it is in general, I can say, one of the tourist destination places and a beautiful land. However, despite Afar being blessed with natural resources and internationally acclaimed tourist attraction sites, it is one of the poorest places. In fact, it is the poorest nation, the poorest region in Ethiopia. In Ethiopia right now, previously we had 9 regions. Now, recently we have added 10 regions. And if you compare the development of these 10 regions, you will find Afar at the bottom. It is one of the poorest regions you'll find in Ethiopia. This poverty is usually instigated by several factors. Some are, I would divide personally, you know, coming from top down, and others are going from down up, from bottom up. And for some of them, I always blame the Afars because the problems are the making of Afars their own hands, our own hands, and some are systematically systematically state-sponsored activities like the land grabbing, the state land grabbing for development activities, for state-sponsored development projects. We usually fail to produce the expected results. You know, like I can give an example of a massive hectare of land taken away. This is just a land that Afars usually used during dry seasons to other pasture land to feed their animals. They were cleaned out of this land for development, you know, I will put development under quotation, as the mega development projects, which finally, after many years of implementation, proved to be a failure. Like the sugar factory erection, or part of the land was also taken for sugarcane plantation. All of these projects finally failed, and the country has invested like millions and millions of dollars, and you know, Indians and other foreign expats were, you know, trying to take control of to run the projects, but finally it failed. However, this kind of land grabbing from the government has also left the region one of the poorest in the country. And in Afar also we have problem of massive illiteracy. Like majority of the people in Afar you see today are illiterate. There are only a handful of Afar intellectuals or who can uh, who are educated, and illiteracy is mainly, it is attributed to years and years of segregation and marginalization by pushing Afars to the margin from national agenda, and an act of successive governments that prevented Afars from accessing education. That is also that resulted the region to be one of the most illiterate region, and majority of the people are illiterate, and illiteracy has contributed to the poverty of the region. And another problem which I see here is also corruption. Corruption is massive in Afar region, but you will see the government doing nothing. That's is also part of the systematically, like it is a mass hypnotization technique of silencing the majority, silencing the Alpha people from claiming their position and their part in the national agenda. The federal government will be pumping money year in, year out to the Alpha people, and they will not dare enforce any kind of accountability. You will see a lot of corruption, massive corruption going on at public sectors, in the education sector, health sector. These are public institutions that were supposed to receive some kind of annual budget or subsidy from the federal government and serve the people with it. But however, the government very well knows that there is massive corruption going on in its institutions, but they don't want to do anything. So I would call this personally a very systematic way of silencing the Alpha people, a very systematic and institutionalized way of hypnotizing the people. You're getting the money, just keep quiet. Take the money, do whatever you want, and keep quiet. So corruption is also a major challenge. Food insecurity is also another challenge today surrounding our community, because like 75% of the Afar people today in Ethiopia, they survive by the mercy of food aid coming from Western countries like the UK. 75% of the three-fourths of our people live by the food aid. And you can see how grave the situation is. Food insecurity is rampant. There is child malnourishment. There is high maternal mortality in Afar region due to lack of access to health institutions, lack of infrastructure. And another problem I would like to raise here is also lack of peace and security, especially after the beginning of the tenure of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed back in April 2018. Afar has seen like a continuous state of losing peace and security, and to the extent of Afars not being able to travel from the Afar regional state capital, Samra town, to Addis Ababa and some of the highland areas because of the growing threats of security, and still the government is unable to solve. In fact, the problem is mainly when we talk about lack of peace and security in Afar region. Everybody knows that we're talking about the conflict between Afar and Isa, the Isa Somali clan, and this has been one of the protracted wars in the Horn of Africa that has never been resolved for so many years. Many governments in Ethiopia have come and gone, and none of these governments were able to solve this lack of peace and high confrontation between Afars and Somalis. But now, since the coming of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed back in April 2008, it's aggravating and it's increasing in intensity, and to the extent of limiting Afars, the mobility of Afars. And like we had the freedom of going back and forth to the highland part of Ethiopia, including to the capital region, Addis Ababa. But nowadays, there is absolutely high lack of peace. There is also poor leadership capacity, mainly attributed because of the government not being willing to empower the intellectuals or to give way to a very strong opposition parties. And for many years, most of the strong opposition political parties of Afar, they were living in exile because of the difference of opinion they had with the previous regime of EPRDF that led Ethiopia for nearly 30 years, and that got toppled by the arrival of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. So the region was purely dominated with one political party called the Afar People Democratic Party, locally known as ABDEPA. And thanks to some of the change that we see in Ethiopia today, most of the opposition parties who were exiled outside Ethiopia have now come back, and they have returned and hope to see some kind of change in the region. Afar is also one of the regions in Ethiopia you see that suffer from environmental challenge. Most of us can remember the recent flooding in Afar region that claimed many lives and created material casualty. And this also happens most of the time very frequently. And finally, we have weak government institutions. Our health, education, and other public sectors are very weak, and These are some of the problems we have in Ethiopia today, in Afar region. And going forward, what do we hope to see in Afar region is, the solution is, first of all, this is the region that doesn't have a regional development plan. There is no comprehensive regional development plan in which you will find the status, the feature of education, health, population and development in general. It's like Afar is like, it's like a ship sailing in an ocean but without compass, and the federal government wouldn't do anything about it. So having a comprehensive and all-inclusive regional development plan will bring massive change in the region. And we also demand the federal government of Ethiopia to discharge its responsibility of protecting citizens day in, day out, especially for the last 3 years since Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed took power. The killing, the suffering, and the insecurity of Afars have increased. You may Google and see today one of the biggest stories about war covered in Afar region by major media outlets like The Guardian is the Obro massacre, where a coalition of people, like the Somali people, I would say, masterminded by the Isa clan of Ethiopia, Somali region, where they attacked the community, and they massacred people, women and children especially, and all the people. And while all this is happening, a lot of insecurity, we really demand the Ethiopian government to discharge this responsibility that is vested up on it in the constitution. It is a must that the government should protect citizens. There is no more dying, no more suffering of Afars. We don't want to see this after this, and that's one of the demands we have. And we also demand the regional government to strengthen its regional security in terms of size, in terms of capacity, in terms of experience. Because according to the Ethiopian constitution, every region has the right to set up regional security forces. And in Afar, you will see them today. They are one of the weakest, and they are unable. Yes, in fact, we do have some kind of security forces, but we want them to be strengthened, empowering opposition political parties, and so that we can end monopolization of the political space at the regional level is also another demand we have. Let the political parties, opposition political parties, we have very strong ones now coming to to save the people, like the Afar People's Party, Afar Liberation Front, or Arduf, and so many of them are there. But if they are empowered and given the freedom to compete and contribute to shaping the political status quo of the region in a very level ground, I'm sure there will be some kind of positive change in Afar region. We also demand the regional government to undergo some kind of regional leadership rejuvenation. The leadership has to be educated and well aware of the circumstance happening today around the globe, around the country, and through that, we want them to be very strong, and they should go through some sort of rejuvenation. Uh, Also, corruption has to be eliminated and combated by enforcing accountability. The federal government of Ethiopia should not keep quiet while seeing all this massive corruption going on in the country. We want them to act immediately, like put accountability there. When you give money, when you give budget, when you give some sort of subsidy to the region, make sure that there is an accountability attached to it. We want to know each and every single penny received from the central government invested for health, education, and other social services. So we really demand accountability. We want also to stimulate the economy. The economy is at all-time low. It's a broken economy in the region. That's why we are the poorest. And if the federal government and regional governments of Afar can cooperate together and stimulate the economy, I'm sure the people of Afar will see a brighter future tomorrow. Unemployment is also one of the problems happening today as more Afars get, more and more Afars go to school and get educated. we see so many university graduates now looking for a job, but they are unable to find this job mainly because Afar is, a place where, people are judged by the, social base, not but by the knowledge base. There is tribalism and favorism towards your clan member or other people who are very close to the regional leadership. So there should be equal and fair treatment of our youth, and everyone should be given more job and has to be created. In short, this is all what I can say. And thank you so much. I will be answering more questions and yeah, anything that comes from the audience later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Daoud. That was an amazing presentation on Afar people in Ethiopia and it's their relationship with the government. And also, we want to really thank you, Dr. Daoud, because he is Zooming all the way from Ethiopia. So we know it's really late there, but we really appreciate that you took the time out to speak with us. And we'd just like to remind everyone that's in the audience that we are going to have a Q&A session. And so if you have any questions for the presenters, please put it in the chat. If you speak a different language, that's totally okay. We have translators available, so you can always ask your question in whatever language you feel most comfortable. Our last presenter is Mr. Hassan Shiham Ali, who is a program analyst with the U.S. Naval Sea Command and an Afar rights activist. He is the co-founder of Afar Youth Association, a nonprofit organization that aims to identify, develop, and connect the next generation of young Afar leaders by focusing on leadership development, education, and entrepreneurship. I will give it to you, Mr. Hassan.
Thank you so much. I want to start off by thanking Ahmed, Hussein, and Daoud for giving a great presentation. And thank you to everyone for participating on Zoom and YouTube, and especially thank you to Save the Horn. Thank you guys for giving us the opportunity and this platform to speak about our community and the struggles that we're facing. As you said, my name is Hassan Shiham Ali, and I'm the current chairman of Afar Youth Association. I currently live in Virginia and work in Washington, D.C. And today I will be speaking to you as a representative of this organization, as well as a Afar young man who's hopeful for the future of his people. And we'll go ahead and get started. So just the background, Afar Youth Association, Afar Runbani Tiegla. We started this organization back in 2015. There's a biannual Afar conference called Afar Forum that takes place in Brussels, Belgium. And at this conference, we as a youth saw that the youth voices was not present in a lot of the conversations that were taking place. The youth and women voices were not present. And so a group of 15 of us got together and said, hey, let's start an organization at the diaspora level that speaks to a lot of the issues that we're facing, not only as diaspora Afar youth, but also Afar youth who were either born in the diaspora or raised in the diaspora. And as I said, we're a network of young Afar leaders who, share a common vision of transforming our community back home and across the diaspora by developing and connecting a new generation of young leaders. High importance on developing young leaders. We strive to be a platform run by and for Afar youth wherever they may be, and a community of young people who are committed to social, economic, and political betterment of our people across the diaspora and across the City Hamo. So as an organization, what are our objectives? What is our purpose as an organization? It is to provide Afar youth living in the diaspora and the Afar territories with opportunities for networking. This is very important. In 2012, when we first met, we had youth from the US, Canada, all across Europe, and we saw that the global Afar diaspora youth community was not connected. And so we utilized social media like Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat as a way to connect with each other. And so we started this thing on Snapchat where we create an account and we would have a new youth take over the account every day and introduce him or herself, and whether they're in school or work, and just kind of share their lives, and we would be able to post questions to them. And at the end, they would share their social media accounts. And this is something that really broadened our connection and our networking abilities. I was able to find cousins who I didn't know lived in Australia and New Zealand, and if you ask any of the members, they all have stories of connecting with family members, and as well as meeting new people. And so also as an organization, we want to work on providing leadership development programming, because we believe that lack of ethical leadership in our community is one of the things that hinders our advancements as a community. And so identifying, developing, and connecting Afar leaders is a big part of our objective as an organization. And also to provide education assistance, including school supplies, uniforms, tuition assistance to Afar youth living in the Afar territories, from primary to university, hopefully. And to provide entrepreneurship training to help Afar youth operate their own businesses, charities, and nonprofits. I'll talk more about this in later slides. And at the end, to sponsor, host, and or participate in events and activities that promote our history, our culture, traditions, and language. Next slide, please. And so, what is our vision? What drives us? As I said, our aim is to identify, develop, and connect the next generation of young leaders. Afar Youth Association, we like to say AYA, seeks to transform the Afar community by developing a powerful network of young leaders across the diaspora and within the Afar territories, who will work together to address our people's greatest challenges, achieve social impact, and accelerate the transformation of our communities and territories. Next, please. You guys can see that I got easy part of this presentation. So as an organization, we decided to focus on three things: leadership development, education, and entrepreneurship. So when it comes to leadership development, we really believe a lot of the issues that our community is facing, whether it's the Afar Triangle, the Sidi Hamu, or the diaspora, it all comes from lack of good leadership or ethical leadership. And so we thought as an organization, we can't change the minds and thinking of older generation, but at our level with this new generation, we could at least identify and connect and invest in young leaders and young Afar youth who have the potential to become good leaders, not only politically, but in their individual career fields. And so leadership development is a big component of what our organization does. And the second part is education. Education, I think Dawood was talking about the issue with the literacy in the Afar regional state. I mean, that is across the board an issue that we're facing as a people, and the importance of education, and especially in Djibouti, the education system is not meant to benefit the Afar ethnic group. The way it operates and the way it excludes Afar students today is of grave concern to us as an organization. And today in Djibouti, a lot of the youth who are sent abroad to study, out of 100, usually 95 are Isa and 5 are Afar. We can look at that in many aspects of Djibouti Afar society, where we are treated as second-class citizens. And so we believe that us as at the diaspora level, investing in education, whether that's with school supplies or books or clothes or shoes, is of great importance to the community. And lastly, entrepreneurship. The aim of our Afar entrepreneurship program is to promote entrepreneurship among our people. The idea of not waiting on outsiders, not waiting on the government in terms of personal responsibility, but also investing in one's family and one's community. We want to highlight and push Afar youth who have the potential to create businesses, to create jobs, by doing workshops, by teaching them the importance of and how to start a business, how to operate a business, and also funding their business ventures. So that's a program that right now we've been working on since October, and hopefully in the next couple of months, that's something that we could introduce to the wider community. Okay, here I'll talk about current and past projects that we've been working on as an organization. So in terms of student sponsorship, right now, Afar Youth Association is sponsoring 3 students in Ethiopia in coordination with the Afar Pastoralist Development Association. That's an association that's been working for a long time in the Afar region. And so we're partnered with them since they're on the ground and they have the know-how of, and hopefully we can increase that sponsorship in the near future. But this just kind of goes to the importance of education. And for us, investing in one student goes a long way in impacting not only their immediate family, but their local community, their village, and the Afar regional state, and Djibouti and Eritrea. And then, as you guys can see, the Afar region flooding that happened last summer. We were one of the organizations that pushed to highlight what's happening in the country last summer, and we started a GoFundMe page and a campaign to highlight what's happening in the country, what's happening to our people. And we raised money, and we were able to raise 13,400 and fill 6 trucks with food. And we had our partners on the ground, and Daud right here is one of the people who helped coordinate that on the ground. And so one thing about this is that, you know, is the federal government ready for the next flood? Is the Afar regional state ready for the next flood? And are we as the Afar Youth Association ready for what might come next? So that's something to think about, and something that we're currently thinking about as the rain season approaches. As you guys know, and as Daud said, the Afar regional state is the least developed of the regions in Ethiopia. And when it comes to natural disasters, it's the most impacted and the least prepared for things like this. And the flooding last year displaced between 144 to 162,000 people. Imagine this is a pastoral society, people who move from place to place for their livelihood and with their animals, and all of that being washed away by the flood. And so, you know, in Western countries, we think of, when floods come, we think of our house, our cars, our children, our families, but they're thinking of their livelihoods, their cows, their camels, things that feed their families. And, you know, as the demolishing of schools, rural roads, hospitals, and domestic animals, these are all things that have impacted and affected people. And, you know, the question becomes, you know, what has changed in the last 7 to 8 months? You know, where are those people today? Are the federal government, the regional government still fixing their issues, or was that an issue that's no longer on people's mind? And the last one we have on the list is hashtag I stand with Afar people. Some of you might know a couple of years ago, and this is still a conflict that's still going on between the Afar people and Eritrea. And so to kind of put this issue in perspective, imagine me as a citizen of the state of New Jersey going into New York, living in Manhattan, Queens, and Brooklyn, and putting New Jersey flag in those 3 cities and saying, now I want these 3 cities to be part of New Jersey. That's what's happening in the Afar region today between the 2 groups. This is an issue that the federal government has ignored for a long time, and in many ways still ignoring the plight of Afar people. As you guys can see here, the pictures of the conflict at that time. And so for us at that time, as the conflict was happening, we were not seeing anything on social media about what's happening, whether that's on Twitter, on Facebook, or on Instagram. And for a lot of us, what's happening on the ground, I have family in the Afar region. You know, my grandfather is buried in the Afar region. And so, and Afar people are my people. And so for us to see these pictures on Facebook and not seeing any actions being taken place, it pushed us as an organization to start this social media campaign to bring attention and awareness to what's happening to our people on the ground. And we use this hashtag to get attention from the international community, from Abiy Ahmed and his government. We have the campaign on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook to bring attention to what's happening. And so this is one of the things that our organization, you know, we went from focusing on leadership development, education, and entrepreneurship to really dealing with everyday issues and conflicts like this that we don't have the capacity to deal with, but we have to. So that's that. And this is just a highlight. In 2018, we are the first organizations in the diaspora to host a Afar Youth conference. The theme of this of the conference was developing and engaging the next generation of Afar leaders. And at this conference, you know, working with some of the women in our community, we were able to put the program together, raise money for the program itself. We had 50 youth present, and we had about 5 to 6 young Afar leaders presenting on different things. We had breakout sessions that spoke about what it means to Afar, what it means to be Afar, our identity, our language, and just some of the problems that we're facing as a community, whether that's in the diaspora or the 3 countries. And another ongoing project that we're working on as an organization is a Afar language application. As you guys can see that picture, that's from a few summers ago where we were actually inputting the data into the application. And so this is still a work in process. And I included some of the words here. We usually have some of our friends who say, hey, can you teach me Afar Afar, or can you say certain words in your language? And just to highlight that for you guys, at the top is a word for thank you, which is gaddage. Gaddamon means you are welcome. Able, I see. Ko marhare, which means I miss you. Ame, which means come, and Maria, which means I don't know. So for those of you, the Afar language uses the Latin alphabet, but the difference is the three letters, as you can see on the screen, Q, X, and C. So the letter Q would make the A sound in English. So in Afar, in English is spelled A-F-A-R. In our native language, it's spelled Q-A-F-A-R, Afar. And then the letter X, which would make the D sound in English. And an example of the usage of X is dagu, which translates to news in the Afar language. And lastly, the letter C, which would make the H sound in the English language. So my name, Hassan, that's the French spelling, but the Afar spelling of my name would be Casan, Hassan. And now this is just to highlight some of the pictures of our engagements and activities, and where we had opportunities to come and see each other. And so one thing I will say about the Afar community in my closing remarks is that, as you guys can see from these presentations, is that we're still a community that's stuck in survival mode today, not only in the diaspora, but across the three countries. By survival mode, I mean, you look at across the diaspora today, and Afar people traditionally do not leave their home countries. It has been in the last 10 to 15 years that we've seen a large migration of Afar people from the three countries, and especially from Dankalia, a lot of young men risking their lives for a better life, but also for security and not being forced to join the military. And a lot of us leaving dictatorship in Djibouti to make a better life for ourselves and our families. But the thing is, today, a lot of Afar people around the world are surviving in a new country, raising their kids, learning a new language, trying to figure out, learning a new way to live, but also working factory jobs, 12, 15-hour shifts, and still sending money back home, not being able to have time to raise their kids at home, not having the time to focus on their kids' education or to help them with their schoolwork. So, you look at the East African community, and, be they Oromo or Amara or Somali, these people are in the diaspora for decades and decades. We're just starting right now. And so in that sense, we're still trying to survive and trying to kind of build that niche for ourselves in the international community. And of course, all the things that are happening back home, being able to introduce the international community to our struggles and what's happening with our people has become a luxury, because we're all working and trying to make a living and sending money back home. Today in Djibouti, you have one family member get a job, and he is supporting his wife, his kids, his mom, his dad, and his family members who live in rural areas, or his cousins who come to get their education. They're staying with him and his family at home. And so in that sense, we're still people who are still living in that survival stages. And we still have a long way to go as a people and as a diaspora community. And, an organization like this giving us the platform and the opportunity to highlight some of the issues that we're facing. Thank you so much for that. I think that is it with my presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Hassan. Okay, so we are going to move into the Q&A period right now. And we're going to start with a few questions for our speakers that we received before the event. When you registered, you may have seen that there was an option to share any questions you had. So we'll start with some of those. And in addition to that, our chat is now open, so that if you did have any questions that came up during the speakers' presentations, or if you have something that you want to ask, you can also post that in the chat, and we will try to get to as many of them as time permits us. So the first question that we wanted to start with is we got a question about the role of women in Afar society. How are women's voices present in the Afar movements and initiatives that we discussed today? And I think we can have any of the speakers take that one.
Do you want the sugar-coated answer or the honest answer? If I can speak to it, and I think this is a question that could be answered at many levels. If for being honest with you, women's voices are still not present in many parts of our societies, not only Afar. But today, if I was to speak as an organization, you know, Hela is part of our organization. She's one of the people pushing a lot of the things that I talked about today. And as young people, you know, we really do believe in, you know, gender equality, not only in the home, but also in the workplace and in our organization. And there was a time in this organization where I was the only man. And so that just kind of speaks to today that Afar women are seeing that they have a space and that they're willing to take charge of that. But in all honesty, we're still a community that deals with gender equality. We still believe in traditional gender norms, which is not a problem. But you know, right now, if you look at on social media and you look at young Afar people who are engaging in highlighting a lot of the issues that our community is facing, you don't see a lot of female voices or women voices. And that's because we still as a community do not promote that. We still don't focus on that. You know, we still see women playing traditional roles in our community. But, you know, there are some, for example, you know, Aisha Muhammad was the first female defense minister of Ethiopia. You know, that's something to highlight and something that we're proud of as a community. You have people like Aisha Dabali in France, you know, who is a leader in her community, who is helping a lot of the new immigrants in Europe. And then you have people like Hila and Amina, who, you know, are on social media highlighting a lot of the issues that we're facing as a community, whether that's our kids not knowing our native language or dealing with, you know, raising families in a new environment. Yeah, Bahai.
If no one else wants to chime in, thank you, Hassan, for your response. Our next question alludes to like the current political movements that are existing in Afar. So what active political movements and organizing efforts exist that engage and represent the people's interests of Afar?
If I can jump in this one, as far as the political, as you know, we are divided into 3 sovereignties. Each state would have their own political movements fighting for their respective countries. So as far as the Eritrean opposition groups, we have, like I said, I represent one of those political movement in exile, the Eritrean Afar National Congress. There is also another Eritrean opposition group. It's called Red Sea Afar Democratic Organizations. There are also a number of activists and you know, in a sense, the entire issue of the Afar people is addressed internationally through them. So we have a number of organizations in that way, if that answers your question.
If I could add to that, I mean, he's mentioned the Eritrea ones. You also have organizations, I think, in the diaspora, like Freed, ARD. But I think in terms of this question, one thing that I think a lot of us are still not focusing on is the importance of security, especially in Ethiopia right now. the number one issue is security. You know, that Afar people are worried about their existence in their own land. And right now in Ethiopia, there's an open civil war, you know, that has been happening for a few years right now, that the government, the federal government, doesn't focus on. And we know this is a conflict that Somali regional government is contributing to. It's a conflict that the Djibouti government is contributing to. But, you know, in terms of, you know, political movements having the capacity to engage and to focus on this, I think in many ways we have a long way to go. You have individuals like Ali Shamali, Ali Sultan lobbying in Washington, D.C., and you have many groups in France and Belgium, you know, for lobbying the European Union at The Hague. So, you know, at individual levels, there are a lot of things that are happening in terms of activism and getting the issues in front of the people that it needs to be in front of. But broadly speaking, in a united Afar front, I think that's still something that we have to focus on. As Ahmed said right now, you know, when it comes to political movements and political issues, we're still, it's country-based, right? It's not a unified Afar political struggle, but it's the idea that Afar and Eritrea focus on their own political issue, Afar in Djibouti focus on their own political issues, and the Afar people in Ethiopia focusing on their own political issues. And some of that is by, you know, just the very nature of politics and how that works. But it also kind of speaks to the idea of, you know, does there need to be a unified Afar political movement, or are issues need to be kept at the state level where there's a possibility of resolution or focus? And I guess that's something that's open for debate. And that's something that I think a lot of people in our community still disagree on, whether there needs to be a unified political movement or if 3 individual countries need to focus on their own.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next question is, how do people from the Afar region identify with Ethiopianness? Do most people from that region speak only Afar, or do they also learn other languages like Amharic? Do they feel excluded from having access to education, work, etc., because of things like language and ethnicity? And I think we can expand this beyond just Ethiopia. I think we can. I think a lot of people are curious about how Afar people view their identity within the context of the 3 states that that their lands lie within. I would love to hear from Hussein, but I know that Hassan, you will have to assist him as well.
If I may jump in and answer this question, and do Afars identify themselves as Ethiopians? And in fact, that is one of the things we are very well known for. And ask anyone, strike a conversation with anyone in Ethiopia, and then have a person or any politician, they will tell you that Afars are very proud Ethiopians. Like, and we are also very well known for one of the saying of the Sultan, the late Sultan Ali Hanbali, who said when his Ethiopianness was questioned, he said, "Let alone us, even our camels know our flag very well," and that resonates within everyone. So we are very proud Ethiopians, and we're just only complaining about some of the systematic and institutionalized marginalization when we are pushed out of the national agenda, when our participation at the national political platform was limited and decided only by the number of population that we have. That's what we are crying out very loudly, and we are only saying, let us be treated equally. Let us not be treated as second-class citizens. But when it comes to Ethiopians, and nobody in Ethiopia will doubt that we're very proud Ethiopians, and we don't also, choose and pick language. And even I can present myself as an example. I speak Tigrinya, I speak Amharic. I also try, to learn as many languages as I can. So in Afar, in Ethiopia, mostly Afars, I would say 95% and above, they speak Amharic. And they also speak Arabic, they speak Tigrinya, and we also have some, because like I've said in my presentation, I said Afar is internally connected with like 4 or 5 regions, and we share international borders with the 2 countries, Djibouti and Eritrea. So since we are highly connected with our neighbors, you know, where those who are those who live in a very close proximity to the Oromia part of Ethiopia, they speak Oromia and Afar. Those who pass who speak, you know, very close to Amhara region, they speak Amharic and Afar. And the same, the northern part of Afar is very close to Tigray, and these people are very, very fluent in speaking Tigrinya. So, and yeah, that's what I can say. Yeah, we're very proud Ethiopians, and we speak so many languages.
Any other panelists want to chime in on that? Maybe with respect to Eritrean or Djiboutian identity?
Sure, I can jump in. I think all Afar people, whether they're in Ethiopia, Eritrea, or Djibouti, believe in, you know, in their Djibouti nationality or in their Ethiopianness or in their Eritreanness. I think all we're asking is, you know, to be treated as citizens in those three countries with full rights and full opportunities. I think everyone in this group would agree to that. And you know, and maybe this is another topic, but you know, as in Ethiopia right now, you know, Amharic is the working language, but you look at the other regions, they have their ethnic languages as the working language, right? Whereas in Eritrea, we're still working towards that right now. Amharic is the working language. It's, you know, we have some of the refugees that came here in Baltimore. Amharic is their first language, you know, instead of Afar. And when you look at Djibouti right now, French and Arabic are the working languages on paper, but today in practice, you go to any government building trying to get help, you will be met with Somali language. People will refuse to speak French with you. And, you know, I think in some ways this kind of contributes to the erasing of our language, of our identity. And so in Djibouti, it is a problem. You know, French and Arabic are the working languages. It's languages that everyone in the country agreed are the working languages that government should operate in. But in practice today, the Somali language takes more precedence than the Afar language. And I think that contributes to the erasure of our language. But I think you can ask any Djiboutian youth or Afar youth in Djibouti today, and they will say they're proud Djiboutian. But not at the expense of them losing their Afar identity and their Afar language.
Thank you. And I did want to mention, I think you mentioned Tigrinya is like the language in Eritrea. Since we're recording, I just want to note that Tigrinya is the working language that Afar people are expected to use there, correct? Anyone else want to share about that before we move on to the next question? Okay, great. Hanan?
So our next question discusses Eritrean independence's influence on the Afar people. So what did Eritrean independence mean for Afar people in Eritrea, as well as its effect on Djibouti and Ethiopia?
You want me to jump on that one? The Eritrean independence did not just come about from the rebels that almost took as the relay of running 400 meters. The one that takes the torch, or the one that takes the baton to the final end, is not necessarily the one who brought the change about, or the independence. So this is a case with in my presentation as the EPLF claimed to have was victorious against the Derg and the independence of Ethiopia, but there's a lot of stories that made the final stretch to victory with the sacrifice of people like Afar. Like I said, the Afar were the first to reject colonialism from the Europeans, but also we continue to reject the marginalization that we currently see in Eritrea, especially targeting the Afar as foreigners, basically colonizing us in our own homeland and persecuting us. So if you look at the independence, was it worth it? Yes, but what is the situation of our people when you are when you create a country, or when you liberate yourself from oppressors, you are basically entitled to rule yourself and determine your self-determination and aspirations. That's not existing in Eritrea today. This is why we are opposing the Eritrean regime. In fact, we are struggling to remove it and replace it in a model that reflects the 9+ ethnic makeup of the country. And of course, the Afar situation is affected directly, the Eritrean situation, I mean, in Djibouti and Ethiopia. Remember, this is a colonial border that was installed between us. In fact, the Afar ties have been cut, the bloodlines and economic ties, and the other people that kept our people from pushing forward was deliberately destroyed, especially by Eritrea. And they created war against Djibouti, and created war against Ethiopia, and it created war against Yemen, including across the sea. So this is as far as we are concerned, a hostile nation, not to its region, but it's to its people as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next question, we got this from multiple people, so a lot of people are curious about it. How has the ongoing war in Tigray impacted the Afar people or the Afar region as a whole? And I think, Dawood, we can start with you to respond to that.
Yeah, since I'm now in Ethiopia, I think I'll be in a position to answer this question. The war in Tigray, it has been going on for the last 3 months now, and it's still going on. And in my presentation, if you remember, I said administratively, Afar is divided into 5 zones and 35 districts. And the second zone, which we call it the Kilbatirosu, which is the northern part of it, is equally suffering with the Tigrayans. No electricity, no banking service, no food, nothing at all. Because all the road supplies are closed, and people are kind of stranded in that kind of circumstance. They are caught in crossfire, and yeah, there was a lot of public outcry when the the government of Afar regional states donated 9 million birr to the victims of the Tigray war, and did nothing for the Afars who are equally suffering. There was a lot of public outcry, but what I can say right now is Afars are also equally suffering with the Tigrayans. It's okay to help the Tigrayans who are affected by the war and who are stranded and caught in this unlucky circumstance. But when you give 9 million to the neighbors, you should be forgetting also the same people who are going through the same experience. Yeah, but I believe in supporting the Tigrayans, because I don't have to tell you the magnitude of devastation that is happening there. So yes, Afars are equally suffering, especially one of our zones, the northern part is cut off from food, banking services, and other public services. Yes, we are suffering.
Thank you, Dawood. Our next question, we're going to move into live question submissions, so questions that we've received from the audience. And our next question is, are ordinary Afar citizens engaged in the political movements right now, or is it more of the elites that have the political power in these movements?
And maybe this time, Hassan, do you mind translating for Hussein, and Hussein can give his perspective from Djibouti?
So, so the average, if I, uh, Hassan. Okay, thank you, brother. If I can answer the average participation of Afar individuals in diaspora, as you know, we're all in diaspora, not by choice, by the regime that is displacing us from our nation. So had we been in the country, we had a space, a political space. Of course, we would see a great number of Afar participation. Since we are in diaspora, and like what Hassan was saying, just recently we were forced out of our countries, so we're not that huge diaspora compared to other nations. So yes, the support base is there in diaspora, but unfortunately, that space is not provided for us in the country. So that's probably reflects why the participation is not that huge.
You guys speaking to the diaspora average citizen or in general?
We were speaking more so to in general.
Hussein, ما تفهمي
Malay.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. So are ordinary Afar citizens engaged in the political movements, or is it more of the elites that have a voice in the political movements?
Yeah, we have no elites in Afar. This is probably why one of our problems. But go ahead, Hassan. Sorry.
Sure. Before Hussein, يتما ما سياسة activism the أفراد المحلة أفراد تبوك لك علي فاي مرنا ولا average كأنهم الدقيقة بس كلامي.
عفرت دلائي دحسا كنا سياسة لك علي مرهناي إنكي هي مرده لونا سينامت يعني marginalize أبا وعدنا genocide إدابا وعدي تامك أفت يعني كنهان abuse يعني كنبان violence إدابا وعدنا يده سياسة يعني دوبك لك علي مري حاجد يعني متى كايده إنكي تن شعبهم إدتكيده إنكي تن شعبي بوليتيك حاجد إدحلو عدنا يده ويسا بارو الدمع عتم يعني تنبوليه دولة كويتم يعني تنبوليه يده أو أساكونا فرنسا إلا يهي يده سلام كي بوليتيكي أنا حلتا متحلتم مثلا يده ما يتبلي سنام بوليتيكي تحلته ربشت كينت يكيم الدفرديتا عفر الدراسة كون إنكي وهمت يعني فيراري لونه يده ما يتبلي توكا عفرك يعني عنداني تاي يعني كدامة عنداماي سيوي لبهاي ها لو نابو سنين نفسي حتون هو ده ها أهي مت يعني حلانا ما أسمي كين تكده.
So I think he's speaking that Afar people in general don't have the luxury of ignoring what's happening around them, politically, economically, and socially. And so the idea of elites only engaging in politics is not a thing in our community. Everyone is engaging in the struggle. And just to kind of add to what he's saying, I guess, he talks about marginalized communities, especially to his end in Djibouti. These are people who are socially, economically, and politically marginalized. These are people who are facing violence every day. These are people who are facing, genocide at the hands of the regime. And so their political engagement becomes something that they need to engage in to survive. And I thought I would give you a lie.
And necessity. It's a necessity. It's not an option for us to be engaged.
Absolutely, definitely. Hey.
And if I can add to that too, I think right now when we think of political activism or engagement, you can in many ways see it at two levels, right? You can see it coming from those who are in government, who are getting paid to push a certain narrative, and that's certainly what's happening in Djibouti right now with the election coming up right now. But when you look at the average Djibouti citizen, these are people who are able to engage participation in reaction to something, not having the luxury to be proactive in their political participation, but as a reaction to what the government is doing to them and in the situations that they're being put in. And so right now, in Djibouti, throughout the year, we see a lot of people being taken from their homes and put in secret prisons by the secret police. And usually you have spontaneous protests that come from this in the country, and those get put down with the national police basically shooting everyone in the crowd. And so a lot of times I think people are fearful of political participation, I think, in the country, because they're using their political voice puts their life at risk, right? And so just being able to just speaking about what's happening to your people, and the result is being taken by the secret police or being put in jail for years. These are risks that a lot of people in our community are afraid to take. I think obviously there's more to it, but I think right now today, in the diaspora community, I think a lot of us are engaged because we see this as a necessity, speaking up for our people and what's happening, across the three countries, and highlighting the issues at its core are, I think, something that a lot of people are engaged in and participating in.
حبت الدهايا إتما أساكونا يده دبق جبوتي عفر هنا عفر حل هاي تما عيبي كين تبا وعدي جنوسايد يعني كيد أبا وعدينا يده جبوتي عفر تكاي ألتري عفر تكاي وتوبيها عفر يعني تكاي أساكونا يده تتريد حاجد يعني جيبوتي كيا كامك عفر اللي دقين تكلي عفر إنكيه دقين تهده عفر إنكيه سلطة هده أنا ساكونا باريس إلى لكن كمال بدك الدل على تريه الدولة عفرك لباتنا كيكو نوكا اللي عد كريد نهارسي دعوتاي international يعني criminal court in Den Haag دعوتاي اللي هي اسمها العمر قال لي هنا السياس أفوركيك سكتتو محاي عفر اللي عديني كلي وهي مقوم يعسرسه أما فيسبوك والإخرية إلا مسكن مقاعدتيتا يهربته ووركت كادونا أبره ودعوة أرحسه وعدنا ودر إسماعيل عمر قل اللي هي توكا أساكونا أوتوبيا دولة كادونا كومبليسيتي إدلي عيسي عفرت أبام أساكونا عفرينكي يتلوك مرده دونك عفر يعني كاكاو عدود حاجدين أنا دبك جيبوتي نمو جيبوتي حاجدين يعني سولك كيانا ما هنا عفر اللي داقين تاكلي يهود نكد حول يهود اللي ردك سجينال دونك ساكون عفر يسي حتى جنوسيدك اللي تبعنا الدبتاه دي حالات رالتك نيدكتاه توبيا التكيم نيدكتاه توبيا كي علاتري عفر كادونا جيبوتي ليك حاجة دي كن دقاه دي حسابه.
So I think today the Afro people are a lot more aware of the struggle that they're facing and the violence that they're facing, whether that's across the three countries and the diaspora. Today, we have the capacity to, see on social media what's happening in Eritrea, what's happening in Ethiopia, what's happening in Djibouti. And as people are recognizing what's happening to them, as you saw in Ethiopia, when the Afar Isa conflict was hitting, that the Afar youth, Duko Hina, started this campaign across the whole regional state, and every city, every major city, young people stood up and, we're talking about what's happening. The Duko means struggle in the Afar language. And so they literally shut down the road that a lot of the trucks were going from Djibouti to Ethiopia. And that showed the significance and the importance of the Afar to the Ethiopian economy. And so, as Hussein said today, we see our issues as Afar issues, not necessarily just as Eritrea or Ethiopia or Djibouti. We're aware and more attuned to what's happening across the Afar Sidi Hamo. And Ahmed, so what's it that pada dugom usug dege amarete hag. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great.
If I may jump in and
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. If I may jump in and share the experience, the participation of Afars in Ethiopian politics, especially for during the last 30 years of EPRDF leadership. The platform was the political landscape was completely closed and shut down for Afars, be it on ordinary citizens or be it the elite groups, because the political system in Ethiopia was structured in such a way that out of the 9 regional states, only 4 of them formed a coalition. These are the 4 big regions with the largest population, like the Oromos, Tigrayan, or Amhara in the southern nations. They form a coalition of political party. They call themselves the EPRDF, Ethiopian People Revolutionary Democracy, something. But they declared the rest of the remaining 4 or 5 regions are the affiliate parts. That means you can't participate in the national policy formulation or development planning, or all you have to do is anything about like the future of the nation was being decided only by those 4 major regions. And so the political landscape was completely closed for others because we were relegated to affiliate status. So there was like we can't differentiate participation between ordinary citizens and the elites. And yeah, that's the situation we have. One of the major reforms taking place in Ethiopia today by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is reforming the politics. What he did was he dissolved that coalition and he formed a national party where your voice and your participation in the national political system or general national agenda will be decided by the number of population that you have. Today, because Afars have around, according to government records, we have like 1.82 million people. We have only 6% political participation in the national agenda, which is still not fair because our voice should not be limited by the number of population that we have, but it should be that every single region in Ethiopia should have equal voice. And I don't see much difference from the previous political structure.
I can add to that, sorry. I think just to speak on the Djibouti part, like today, next month in April election is the presidential election. And today, a lot of the youth in Djibouti are against the 5th mandate for the current president. And so you see a lot of young people who are engaged on social media, but also in Djibouti. I was there in December, and right now the president, a lot of people in the country do not support him running for a fifth mandate or a 5th term. And so they put together this event at the stadium, and they forced all the government people working and a lot of the youth to come to this event that was portrayed as, hey, the youth want me to run for a 5th term, the people want me to run for a 5th term. So they rented out all the buses in the city and shipped people from their work to the stadium. They told the students of the school, if you don't come to this event, you will be docked absent for 2 weeks in school. And so when I was there, I was seeing all these trucks and all these buses driving to the stadium with unhappy people being forced to go, as well as the government giving each person 5,000 Djibouti francs to attend the event. And so that, I mean, that just goes to show that a lot of people in the country are tired and are ready for something new. But on the outside, the government is faking these events where to the international community, and especially to the Americans, Chinese, Italians, in Djibouti, that, hey, my people want me, but in reality, on the ground, it's people being paid to show up, being paid to post things on Facebook. Thanks.
Great. Thank you all. The next question, we've had a few people ask this question in different, with different phrasing in the chat. But for Ahmed, how has Afar, like the Afar National Congress in Eritrea, have you worked with other marginalized groups in Eritrea to push for political change, and how have those relationships played out? Has there been any coalition building work there?
Yes, the Eritrean Afar National Congress is part of the 19 or so political organizations, Eritrean opposition groups, the EANCDC, and that's the general umbrella of opposition groups. But we have a compartmentalized issues among us, like you said, the Afar being one, the Saho, the Kunamas, those ethnic minority groups that are face the brunt of the aggression within the country. So we reach out to others groups who are marginalized, and we love to work with them, and we continue to reach out to them. And this is the we hope this is an opportunity to reach out to them. So we are open to work in any capacity with them.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. Our next question is for Mr. Dawood, and this speaks to what you were discussing earlier in terms of the current dynamics in Ethiopia. How has rising ethno-nationalism in Ethiopia impacted the Afar community's political goals?
Can you say that again? Didn't understand it. Okay.
Sure. How has the rising ethno-nationalism in Ethiopia impacted the Afar community's political goals? So basically referring to the ethnic strife within Ethiopia and how that's affected the Afar community.
Well, many people are very well aware of the current circumstance in Ethiopia, that the country is ravaged by ethnic-based tensions, like mainly the problems that we have in Ethiopia today are other because of differences in perception of history, or it is because of ethnic violence, or it is because of a fight over resource and power. So when the country goes through this kind of circumstance, Afar is now, I don't know if you remember in my presentation when I said it is one of the safe havens for people who are escaping war or any kind of violence. And you see a lot of people, pouring to our land, and we have refugees, like internally displaced people from Tigray. These are people escaping from war and some kind of violence happening there. So in terms of influence in Afar region, it's to some extent created a kind of a refugee crisis, I would say, and people are still coming to the land, and yeah, I don't know, probably that's the impact that I can remember so far.
Great. So the next question was written in French to Hussein Ibrahim, and I'll read it off, but if I didn't do a good job, please let me know. So, est-ce que le FRUD a failli politiquement en n'optant pas pour le changement radical de leurs membres ou de leur leader? N'est-ce pas un problème, le fait d'exister depuis 13 ans et ne rien changer en interne et faire la même chose depuis 30 ans, 30 years?
Bah écoutez,
30, excusez-moi. 30 ans, pas 13 ans.
30 ans, mais j'apprécie votre
Yeah.
hein. C'est très bien dit, c'est très bien prononcé. Là-dessus, il n'y a rien à dire. Je suis tout à fait content. Mais pour vous donner un élément ou des éléments de réponse immédiate, je ne suis pas un membre effectivement du FRUD, c'est très important. Mais j'ai peut-être effectivement quelque chose à dire par rapport à la situation du fruit. C'est très facile de critiquer en externe quand on n'est pas dans l'interne. Je crois que c'est des personnes effectivement qui mènent un combat très difficile. C'est pas facile contre tout un État génocidaire avec une politique et une violence génocidaire. Moi, j'aurais bien voulu, s'il y en a effectivement qui veulent faire absolument la même chose ou qui veulent assurer la relève, ils viennent effectivement se présenter. Mais ce n'est pas... Aujourd'hui, je pense que tout Afar devait ou devrait en tout cas se considérer comme étant un membre effectivement du fruit parce qu'on est quand même soumis à une espèce de politique de couvre-feu et d'occupation absolument politique hein, depuis l'indépendance de Djibouti. Afar Afar et Degarseki, Arhududama, يعني لوباك يعني بورال يفري يعني كعسويا أفل ينمو أنا يعني ما حابة أكتر يعني donc أنني فرد ممر ما يوم ما لكن سأعفر هنكو إنك يعني فردنا كم فديمك الدسوكتي donc وسا كنا عفر يعني كله عدينارهم يعني كريتيكي يعني يتم بولت يا بانما إيه وقت من وساكونا ما فرا يعني كهيت النهارهم نسابو حبسي سانا فرانه بارونك بكسانا يعني فرانه وما يبولو كدت ننو تو عدينا هاي عفر يعني يتنا مت الدقحتا مكارهم كل عدينا وعفر حتى هدف التيتا حتى أنا يعني فردين تفرد يعني تكاي وجوجمو يعني تكاي إيزي يعني تكاي عفر يتنا عدوي أكويتم يعني فردينتا قدامك حتانم يعني فردينتا هو سدود يليني بسو يعني تتهانم يعني فرينك يرحم يبعتيني لكن يرحم فريدان ناي أكتان ناي وقوم ناي تا يعني براري حاجي سنينه محلا ما يتبلي دونك عفر يحلو فوحة هيتم يعني فردينتا لو فوحة النعم بلتم قد بحاجي دي أساكونا لك عسل نك بكسانم يعني فران أرتاكي أني وايتم باهن سنم وما يبلو كدت يبرين أجابو نك حيدسان سنم نك عيدين إنكي هن عفرا أسجود دهني هي جين دايل دوك وحا جديها وحا جدي الفوكس أبانم الدفردين تكلها فريدة در أنها بيني ورنها بيني أكتو يعني مي وقت منو دوك قالوا حا جدي كي سنم كي راعسة بسوه جنم يعني فردين فوحا جنم الدفردين
What was the question?
The question was asking about essentially the FRUD. They haven't changed their leadership. Have they failed by not opting for a radical change in their leadership? And they've been in existence for 30 years and haven't made any changes since. So essentially questioning, their direction over the last 30 years.
Sure. Before I get to, I guess, his response, I think these types of questions always tend to come from people who are not engaged themselves, and today in the Afro community, there is room for criticism. There is room for different opinions, but not at the expense of just criticizing people who are, using their time, energy, money, and time with their family to engage in these activities. Right today you have people who have families and who are supposed to be sleeping, who are engaging in this, and so a lot of times these type of questions come from people who are just tearing our communities down. And so what Hussein is saying here is that I don't have the luxury of tearing down Freed. I'm not a member of their organization, but today we should all be part of organizations like Freed, like ENAC and Rasado, or any of the other Afar political groups or human rights groups that are engaging in the struggle. We should be uplifting them and working with them and trying to improve them instead of criticizing them and critiquing them on social media. He brought up Yana Mafara. She's a famous Afar singer in Ethiopia, and she is the one who always kind of speaks about unity and encouraging Afar people to work towards their issues, and basically saying, hey, don't let the land get away, don't let our enemies take our land. He's kind of speaking speaking to her idea of that we should be, working together as a people and not as enemies. And today, as Afar people, we don't have room for internal enemies or to be enemies of each other. And as as he was pointing to, in Djibouti with the government and Isa is taking over like Asal, which is a salt-rich area in Djibouti, as well as a lot of the bad things that are happening in rural areas. A few years ago they found a mass grave in Dai, and especially after the Civil War, a lot of these were found throughout the country. So the point here he's trying to make is that we should be working with and improving organizations who are already on the ground working towards a lot of these issues.
Thank you all. Our next question is for Mr. Dawood. And this alludes to the flood that occurred in the Afar region of Ethiopia. The flooding in Awash River has been a major issue. What was the regional and federal government's response to this flood? And has there been work to prevent further flooding?
Yeah, that's an absolutely interesting question. And speaking of the flood, this relates to my presentation when I said one of the major problems we have is environmental challenge like the flooding. When the recent flooding took place in Afar region, it claimed so many lives and created material and human casualties. But when you compare the solidarity and the support received from federal government or regional government and other entities like non-Afar people like regional governments, I would say much of the support came from the regional government, not the federal, not the regional government, but other other non-Afar. We were absolutely overwhelmed by the by the support. Like you would see Harare regional state, especially, who came 4 times with their aid materials, like 4 times. So full of truck, full of food, full of medical staff, full of medicines, and the same aid also came from when the Somali regional state landed their boats with full of trucks, carrying food and humanitarian items. So I would say most of the support came from regional states and other Ethiopians. Like the support was overwhelming. The entire nation was mobilized to. They came to save, and I think I should use this opportunity to say thank you to all fellow Ethiopians who supported the flooding, and the diaspora Afro community also who contributed and sent money back home, and faith organizations like some Islamic TV stations or like other TV stations who reported day and night about the incident and raised awareness, and so yeah, it was absolutely good support that we received from the entire Ethiopia.
Great, thank you so much. This is going to be our final question. Again, we do have a limited time, so I know there are lots of questions in the chat. We're sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but please continue engaging with us at State of the Horn through our social media, and we will continue to host events. So hopefully this won't be the end of our learning experience together. So the final question is, this is for all of our speakers, so we would love to hear from each of you in turn. As Afar people, and some of you are members of the diaspora, how would you suggest advocating for those back home in Afar, and how can the diaspora help to elevate Afar voices, and what gives you hope for the future of the Afar people? So maybe Ahmed, do you want to start us off?
Sure. The way to move forward is obviously to mobilize yourself and have to connect with us. Again, I'm talking in the Eritrean portion of our problem. The way to help is to give your expertise and your resources to and work with us. But this is at a diaspora, but the major issue needs to come from the institutional change that needs to happen in terms of constitutional reform, in terms of the rights that I spoke to in my presentation. So in order for us to do that, we, first of all, as Eritreans, we are divided in views. We are united in one thing, that is to remove the tyrant, the present tyrant, Isaias Afwerki, from the regime. But we are not united in what the next day will bring. So this is where the issues are. So as long as we don't see eye to eye on those things, it will be very difficult to develop a trust and work together. But having said that, there is number of groups and organizations that are working together to see those kind of changes to take place and coming to the assist the Afar organizations like us. If you allow me, if I can take 2 minutes, I wanted to I got the written questions that I wanted to, that was not here. There was something about yellow for Dankalia, and also the issues of ASAP. This has always been at the heart of the discussion not in amongst the Eritreans, but also in Ethiopia. The Ethiopian diaspora, as we follow, especially after the involvement of Eritrea in Ethiopia's affairs and committing genocide against Tigrayan people, we have witnessed a lot of people calling for the ASAP to be extricated or taken by force by Ethiopian extremists and those who support their cause, perhaps in Eritrea. So first of all, we like to tell those kind of people that first and foremost, that Eritrea does not own the Afar land. It is, like I said in my presentation, Eritrea is forcing itself and colonizing the Afar region, and it's changing the laws that predated its existence to take the land and resources, including the ASAP port. And most recently, the Eritrean tyrant is talked about, was a news clip that says that Ethiopia, he in fact given ASAP to Ethiopia's use. By the way, we are not against Ethiopia using the port of ASAP. What we reject is that the rightful owners of the land and the port and the historic grievances of Afar should be addressed. This is where we come in, and this is what we wanted to see. Whatever happens as in port of ASAP, the Afar need to be on the table, and the agenda should be addressed by representatives of the Afar people. This is as far as the ASAP is concerned. The other issue that was raised is the yellow for Dankalia. This is in fact when there was a starvation in Eritrea, man-made starvation that Isaias Afwerki has imposed on the Afar people in Dankalia when there was COVID-19 blockade all over the world. So he in fact used his meanness to finish up his business of atrocities in Dankalia. So he's imposed he took away the fishing boats. He took away or blocked all the means for people to support themselves in the name of COVID-19. And at that time, there was similarly at that time there was a massive protest in the U.S. Most of those protests in Paris and everywhere else, people use the yellow to engage and mobilize the people as a symbol of oppression. In fact, when George Floyd was murdered in Minnesota, in USA, the picture that was kneeling down on George Floyd's neck, the policeman was kneeling down on Floyd's neck, our people in diaspora took that opportunity and showed that Isaias Afwerki is kneeling down on the Afar necks in Dankalia. So that's where the coloration came from, as far as the yellow for Dankalia movement was concerned. I just wanted to speak on those things, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Hassan, if you wouldn't mind just quickly translating the final question for Hussein so he can also answer.
Bon.
Oh.
Hati.
Oh,
يي يعني conclusion هنا.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, definitely. Sorry, say that again.
Go ahead, sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Basically, how would you suggest advocating that people in the diaspora can advocate for those back home and for Afar people in general? So how can we continue to elevate Afar voices, and what gives you hope for the future?
Yay, effectivement, thank you so much for your question. يعني تتكي تما أساكو نايد عفر يعني دياسبورا كل كلي سلطم يعني فدينتا إيتا قريتم فدينتا إيتا يعني تماتم يعني فدينتا إيتا تسكدم فدينتا ومنه عفردت ويتنتم توقدي لما هكا عفر يفيهانم يعني فدينتا عفر كله عدينا بسه اللي قددو دما عفريو فيهانما أساكونا تو عفريو الداني وايتكسا أدو اللي مشاكل تيتا نهكا يعني تباتم عفر إيتا تسكدم يعني فردينتا عفر إيتا التماتم يعني فردينتا عفر إيتا اللوكمال ستام يعني فردينتا عفر التكتينا يعني تكو عدينا رحم ريزو سوسيوتو رحم فيهانم يعني فردينتا يعني أوي مقمري معتا مومي أبانا وعفر فورمرا يعني تكيك أكمرا يعني تكيك وعفر أسوسيسونك إلا هاي تميكي يعني على علاقة إيتالوك تالم يعني فردينتا فانتيارو إيتالوك يعني تالم فردينتا عفر مشاكل هي هاي تم دبن يعني سنك هايتا إيتال يعني كم بهتامي حاجد يعني حاجة إيتالوك إدابانم يعني فردينتا يكويت انت ما نكويت انت ما ساكون عفر حاجة حبسه وعدنا organization نكويت ما methodology نكويت انت تاما نكويت انت ما قمري تام تمر هنا أسيدو حك حبت قالوا يتكي هاي يعني كله عدنا شاكت الدحولتا يعني فوكس الدبتم يعني فردينتا توكاي دونك اخرها عن قراها عفر يوتا اللي فردينتا ميستوى تم فردينتا فايتا فردينتا يونايت نيشن اختوية بتم يعني فردينتا اللي ينين بارو الكادونا انتجريشن ابانم يعني فردينتا عفر كوهم امنا ويتنتا او يانو يعني اكل يو ابارو يعني حاجة حلتم يعني فردينتا أبارو مرلوك قدام يعني فردينتا لو بينبتم يعني فردينتا إسي مركادونا كل ساكونا اللي حتنا أبتم يعني فردينتا توكا هكا يسوق.
So there is two ways looking at this. First is internally. You know, he spoke about the importance that the Afar diaspora community should be more united in their efforts, whether that's lobbying, social media presentation, or conferences. Speaking with one voice, speaking with an objective as a community is something that we need to focus on. And you know, of course, as a people who are in 3 different countries with individual focuses, you know, it's hard to have that main objective where we're all able to push together. But we should also have the capacity to, you know, work at the individual level, but also kind of come together and work together at the diaspora level to push, you know, certain campaigns or certain goals. Also, you know, the importance of integration. You know, wherever we may be, you know, we should be involved in the local politics and the politics of the countries and utilize that as a way to benefit us. You know, here, for example, like lobbying in Washington, being involved in the politics of the U.S., but also using that power and that influence to bring to focus on what's happening back home. And the other final thing you said is, you know, the idea of Afar. In our community, there's a concept called Afar, or it's something that every Afar person should have, is the idea of you know, that we're one people with, you know, one language, one culture, one identity, one religion. You know, we look across the Horn of Africa. We're fortunate enough to, you know, have one language, one religion, and just that uniqueness. And Afar means that we should be advocating for each other wherever we are, whether that's you know, at the family level, at the local level, or at the country level, or at the international level. But in terms of the, you know, other diaspora communities, I think what you guys are doing right here is something that's contributing to, you know, our cause and what we're trying to do in the international at the international level.
Yeah, you just made one important point. Let me help you, Hassan. Yeah, he also said that this is very important, and everybody has to listen to this. He said for Afars to survive and thrive, they need to create organization. They need to come up with some kind of methodology to implement their plan, and finally they should be people of work. Most of Afars, you know, they are not kind of working people, and if we don't have if missing one of these three elements will be a greater impediment to our cause. So that's a very important point he said there. But if I may follow up my own point from there, so this is me now speaking to the question when you said, how can the diaspora community help the causes back home, or the cause of Afar people? For me, the best way the diaspora can help is if they can educate their MPs and representatives. So these are the decision makers, these are the policy makers, these are the people who can influence our leaders. So if you can educate and enlighten your members of parliament, or, you know, leaders of some kind of constituency, that would be a very great help. Meanwhile, you should continue to do like what you have been doing in every time when calamity strikes back home, or some kind of problem, natural disaster happens, you know, setting up this GoFundMe accounts, raising money, sending back home, and expressing solidarity on social media. These are the support that the diaspora should continue. And in terms of hope, what gives me hope right now as a proud Ethiopian and Afar is the fact that the diaspora is helping more than ever. They are engaging in Ethiopian national affairs, in Afar national affairs. That's something that gives me hope. The fact that more Afars are getting educated in Ethiopia, they're becoming more aware and conscious of their history and their, you know, their place in the national politics. And that's also something that gives me hope. And the fact that more political parties who have been exiled for the last many years are now coming back home to help and reshape and challenge the status quo is something also I would have to mention as a sign of hope. And social media, you know, it has also given us the opportunity to share with the world our pain and our plight and the injustice that is happening to our people. So the existence of social media and the fact that we can share anything within a blink of an eye with our iPhones, or, you know, these smartphones, is something that is helpful. And finally, the fact that Afar nationalism is reviving, and Afars are feeling the pain of any Afar in Eritrea or Ethiopia. Everyone is standing in solidarity. All these things, you know, these are the signs of hope, and I hope there will be a light at the end of the tunnel. And I would conclude by saying thank you so much for this opportunity, and it has been a pleasure to be speaking in this platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Hassan, did you want to add anything else before we close out the event?
Sure. I think just kind of add to what Hussein was saying, you know, in terms of what can we do as Afar people at the diaspora level. It's okay for people and political groups from the three countries to work together you know, for the betterment of our people. And I think right now at the international level, we're also grouped off and only, you know, focus on our own individual country. You know, one thing that we have at the international, at the diaspora level, is that we have the capacity and the ability to work together and work across, you know, across countries. And so, you know, as a young person, you know, I used to go to the Afar Forum conference, and for me, that was an opportunity as a young Afar person to, you know, engage in my community and see all these young people who come to this conference, and an opportunity to learn from these different political leaders. And when I get there, there's no sense of unity. There is no sense of oneness. It's just that, you know, Ethiopian Afar only focus on Ethiopian issues, Eritrean Afar only focus on Eritrean issues, and Djibouti Afar only focus on Djibouti issues. And so my message to our people is to move out at the diaspora level. We need to move away from that. And, you know, if there are issues in Eritrea, we all from Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Eritrea all need to focus on that, you know, as it's happening. If there's an issue in Djibouti, we need to focus on that. If there's an issue in Eritrea, we need to focus on that, you know, and there's power in numbers. You know, today, the Afar diaspora is growing. It's growing in the US, in Canada, in Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. We have an opportunity to come together and to actually, you know, have objectives that align with what we want for our people. You know, this doesn't mean that we're all fighting for one Afar country, but what we're trying to fight for here is that the Afar people in Djibouti should have their rights respected and should have their rights, you know, as citizens of the country. Same thing for people in Ethiopia and Eritrea, you know. And as we saw with these different campaigns, like we're all able to come as one Afar people and work on these. You know, as the flooding was happening last year, you know, that's something that should have hurt all of us. That's not something just that Aya and Afar people in Ethiopia should have worked on, but it's something that Eritreans and Djiboutians should also have worked on. And so I think today, as young people, we all understand, you know, the need to work together and to have a single voice and a single message, but yet also at the state level or at the country level, be able to also deal with their own issues. But all these issues that we're facing as a people, we're facing it in all three countries. Social, economic, political marginalization today is happening in all three countries, you know? And so as that at the international level or at the diaspora level, those are all issues that we should be able to speak on broadly, but also at the country level. And so today as a young Afar person, who can I talk to? Who can I see as a leader, you know, and say, hey, let's do something together. Let's work on this together, you know? But instead, as a young person who comes with an open mind and hunger to help his people, I feel like a lot of times in our community with the elders and with the political leaders, we get this idea that, oh, wait for your turn. Your time will come, you know? Instead of like, I'm educated, you know, I could contribute to what you're doing. I can contribute with the social media, with the websites, with getting the words across. But at the end of the day, it seems like, one, our leaders are okay with where they are, you know, but in terms of bringing in new blood, bringing young men and young women and girls, I think we still need to work on bringing youth and women into the fold on a lot of the decision-making processes and the advocacy part. So, you know, as most African men, we like the idea of sitting on a chair and saying, hey, clap for me. But in reality, what we need is boots on the ground. We need young people who are educated to be on social media, talking about our stories, talking about our history, talking about the struggles we're facing as a people. Today, a lot of young people in the Afar diaspora are ready for that, but they're just lacking the education and the history and not knowing where to go. And I'm sure the other day when we had that conversation on Clubhouse, you know, I asked you guys, where do you get your news about Afar people? You know, there's not a central place today where we can get news about Afar people, a source that we trust and say what is happening with the people in the three countries and the diaspora. There's not a place that we can find that today. And so that's a failing of us as young people, but also a failing of our elders or people we consider leaders in the diaspora community. So, you know, like most youth today, we're ready, involve us, let us be a part of it. You know, we don't want to just be there clapping hands. We want to actually be in the sausage making process. And I'm sure this is something that a lot of East African communities deal with. And that's something that's not unique. But you know, to speak to my own community, I think today Afar youth around the world and in the three countries are hungry, are ready to fall behind a leader or organization that has objectives that actually will be impactful in our community. You know, I'm tired of looking at Djibouti politics and saying, oh, I can't go protest because my cousin has a government job, or I can't do this, I can't do that, this and that. That's bullshit. There's a lot that we can do at the international level, especially with social media. And I think we've seen that as a East African community. Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing it all together, Hassan. That was, I think, a great way to conclude this event. I want to, first and foremost, before we just move into thank yous, I want to specifically acknowledge one person who was not seen today by our viewers or attendees. Her name is Hela, and without her, this event would not have been possible, and she has supported us in the past in the background. So I just really wanted to acknowledge Hela and the work she's done, not only for us here, but for the Afar community. I've also linked her YouTube channel in the chat. She just started YouTube and is the first bilingual Afar YouTuber. And if you want to learn more about the Afar culture, the Afar community, she was married back home. So all of these experiences, things, there's a lot to learn from her channel. So I really wanted to acknowledge Hela and all of her work that she does behind the scenes for the Afar community, and then also for us at State of the Horn, what she did to put this event together. So, and then of course, a big thank you to all of our guest speakers, Hussein, Ahmed, Dawood, Hassan. They joined us from France, from Canada, from Ethiopia, and from the United States. So literally all over the world. And we're very honored to have had you here and to have been a part of just the knowledge sharing and insight that you have clearly, as you can see in the chat, and you will see in the survey results, you have kind of put for a lot of us in the community who didn't know a lot of the things that you shared. So thank you for the work you do in the community, and thank you for being here today. The YouTube channel for our YouTube has been linked, as well as the survey, so you can kind of go to those resources to share the video or watch it again, or watch it if you missed some of it. And the survey helps us kind of understand how we can shape these conversations and why we were able to have this conversation, because it was a needed one. So I think that being said, I think we can close it off. Again, thank you to the speakers. Thank you for the panelists. You guys did an amazing job. And thank you for everyone who attended.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. The future is bright with you guys.
Thank you.
Carry
and also,
on.
sorry, I want to ask
Thank
the speakers if they could kindly stay back just for about 5 minutes, just so we can speak with you. But thank you, if you can. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I'll
Sarah.
stop.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Ouais.